You're a dream of ours for a while now, and we're actually getting into it, making some content, bringing you guys in, having fun, talking smack about all the hot issues of the day, just to set some time in case people are watching this years from now.
Hot issues of the day. Hot issues of the day. I like it. That's what we call a segue.
Yeah, that was a Freudian slip. So it is February 28th, 2024. So if you're watching this a millennia from now, you can now correlate it with the current events of the time. But before we get into the topics that we have selected for tonight, Brianna, do you want to say anything to the folks at home?
Hi, my name's Brianna Wu. I'm on the left, Connor is on the right, and it's us versus the crazies. We're going to be talking about all the ridiculous people that are out there doing stuff this week. I'm really looking forward to it.
The good news is we have a fantastic amount of examples this week. So the first one that we're going to talk about tonight is the young gentleman, tragically young. We will be memeing a little bit tonight. I think we have to. But the tragically young gentleman who was active duty Air Force, who walked in front of an Israeli embassy, and in order to protest, I believe, the Palestinian Gaza situation, but also the American campaign in Yemen, he actually doused himself in gasoline, lit himself on fire, later died. Kind of an extreme event, and the video was going all over the internet. The protest surged, a lot of lefties supported him, and a lot of righties were making fun of him. So I have lots of thoughts, but I would like to hear your thoughts.
I mean, look, it's a tragic situation. I mean, I'm not going to celebrate anyone's death or laugh at it. I think that's kind of cruel. At the same time, Connor, I was really, 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 really hyper disturbed by how many people on my own side were calling him a hero. We're praising this. We're talking about it like it's, some great political move. And like, as proof of this, they were bringing out examples of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton praising people that had basically immolated themselves. And I'm like, my dudes, that's not like a plus for this guy. That's an example of how Hillary Clinton at her worst would pander.
Were they praising the 1970s Buddhist monks who set themselves on fire? I don't remember the context.
It wasn't that. It was some other examples, some more modern examples of people setting themselves on fire. And it's like, no, this is a really bad tactic. And look, okay, really hot take here, man, and then we'll hear what you have to say about it. But, the truth is, back in that era, like, audiences they hadn't seen the shit that you and I see all the time, right? And I'm sure that was more shocking. Like, we live in an era with infinite school shootings. And if you think that this is going to magically change minds, like, we don't even like pay attention more than a few days when someone shoots up an elementary school. So it's just, it's a different era, and it just makes no sense. We don't need to be praising it. How do you feel about it?
No, that's perfect. So my frustration with the situation, and obviously I'm always going to punch a little bit harder on the left, but my frustration with the lefties is like, we care about mental health, we care about this, we care about that, like, we, all that kind of stuff. And then here we have, like, we talk about, everyone talks about the desperation of the populace to need purpose, to need existential purpose. And the left is filled with people who, not trying to be stereotypical, but they don't have a strong purpose. So when you're like, yeah, hell yeah, set yourself on fire, go protest by killing yourself in front of other people, I think that's like an insane thing to say to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of young people who are looking for that, maybe not like actual literal physical martyrdom, but they kind of are looking for that like broad thing that they can ascribe themselves to. And I think that the cruelty, I've participated in some of the online cruelty, kind of poking fun at this, but the reason why I'm doing that, one, because it's funny and it's mean, but two, because I don't want kids to think that like this is gonna end up with them being like a perpetual martyr, like their name is gonna ring out for centuries or millennia because they sacrificed themselves at an important time in history, literally with flames. We all remember, or at least I do, remember that iconic Buddhist monk who set himself on fire. But the reason, in order protest the Vietnam War, but the reason why that was iconic was because mass media wasn't going to swallow it the next day. Whereas to your point, you said that it's a different era. People kill each other, do mass shootings, terrorist attacks every single day, and we hear about it all because we have a global society at this point. So this is going to be a blip in the ocean, spit in the ocean. It's going to be a blip on the radar, and it's going to disappear.
That's exactly it. And so I want to really drill down into what you were talking about with this being a message for young people that was really, really damaging. We should set up show notes so people can check our sources as we're talking about this stuff. But one of the things to come out was this person's Reddit. I encourage you to go read it for yourself. And one of the things that really disturbed me that was consistent in there is going through and his statements on democracy, and just go down the fringe left buzzwords like voting is pointless, democracy is pointless, none of it matters. And what I really worry about with the really extreme fringe left is when you're telling young people, very, very young people, this person was only 25, when you're telling them, democracy and voting is pointless, you have no way within the system to change this. And you're also doing this fringe left thing of when you build your identity and your sense of good as a person in the attitudes you purport to hold. Like it puts people in a situation where, okay, you can't operate within the system and you've got to show your like maximalist fealty, where it's not enough to say like, I'm not sure Netanyahu is doing the right thing in the way he's prosecuting this war. You've got to go even further. I don't know where people can go in a system like this except to the most extreme place possible, which is going to result in death. And just one more thing, Connor. This really upset people when I said this on Twitter, but I stand by this. I'm not the only person that saw this and went, that's about half a step away from a suicide bombing. And the more I thought about this, I think the American version of this kind of violence isn't going to be a suicide bombing. I think it's going to be someone, grabbing an AR-15 and going out and committing a mass shooting, right? Like we tend to take our anger out on other people here. Considering the kind of disintegration of political norms here, this is so obviously something we should not be encouraging.
Yeah, what's shocking to me is we had the stochastic terrorism discourse for like 2 or 3 years on Twitch or YouTube politics, and I was perfectly fine with it because I think that it stands to reason. And if you're unfamiliar with these terms, what it means is if you lead somebody ideologically up to a cliff and then you act surprised when they jump off, then you're kind of an asshole. And so what most people were pointing about in the 2010s was anti-Muslim immigration sentiment, where you're like, they're invaders, they're rapists, they're murderers, they're going to replace our culture, they have a higher birth rate, all this kind of stuff, right? They just said this endlessly about Muslim immigrants. But when somebody would cite some of these ideologues in their mass shooting attacks of a mosque or in their gang warfare against Muslim people, then they would be like, oh, whoa, but I never advocated for violence. But they would lead you logically up to the threshold of violence. And so this is where you talking about how like voting doesn't affect anything, democracy doesn't matter, our republics doesn't matter, everything's corrupt, everything's falling apart, it's all doom and gloom and all that kind of stuff. I could see how a young person who thought of themselves as hardcore would end up doing something like this. And so what I don't think people online, they're so used to extreme events, I don't think they're going to hold the stochastic propagandists to account. Also, a lot of the stochastic verbiage comes from the left, so I don't think it'll be used to hold people to account. But I really would like to play Uno reverse card and say, hey, listen, when you lead people to thinking that everything is desperate, everything is existential, we're all on the verge of dying, et cetera, you can't be surprised when people jump off the proverbial cliff.
That's exactly right. No, you're 100% dead on there. So, I mean, I guess, like, what should our response be to this? I mean, one of the things that really gets me is I feel the fruitlessness of, like, It's exactly like when you're talking about like every mass shooting. It's like, well, we should do something about mental health, right? It just feels so fake and phoned in here, even though it's true. I mean, again, you've got kids, Connor. You have to look at some of these stats about what, particularly young boys are going through. It's some really scary stuff. So, I mean, how do you kind of enter that mental health situation? Because I think it is true that a lot of mentally unhealthy people, particularly on the left, are looking to politics to solve all their problems for them.
Yeah, that's gonna be unfortunate. The issue is that I'm not a religious person, but I'm a relatively spiritual person. Like I believe in a creative force that set the world into motion. I think that there's order and rules to the universe, and I think that I as a living being am called to try to understand the world as best as I can and make it a better place the following day. But when I start bringing up these like concepts that are oftentimes rooted in religion, some secular people will be like, yeah, of course, that's what I do by default. And then other people are so anti-theistic, they reject the very concept of trying to set the world, quote unquote, in order from a Jordan Peterson perspective. But I think that these things, even if you're not like a religious literalist, like I don't know whether or not the creator of the universe gives a shit whether or not I exist. I am suspicious of whether or not there is an afterlife. I think there probably isn't, but I still have hope for higher things. And so these things kind of give me like a root, like a foundation on which to build out other ideas. And I've dedicated the rest of my life, including when I'm old and decrepit and diseased, to fighting the battle to the bitter end to make the world a better place. And I tie it to a few like metaphors and stories that, my audience is going to have to forgive me. But one of them is like a German saying that's very short, which is basically, even if the world was to end tomorrow, I would plant an apple tree today. And so it's rooted in that hope for the future. And you're right, it's not for me. It's for future generations. And I think one of the things that we're really lacking is a vision of the future. I feel like boomers have not sold us anything. I feel like the Democrats have said that everything is going to destroy and die because of global warming in the next 12 years. And we should basically all kill ourselves in order to minimize our carbon footprint. And then Republicans
and not have kids and
not have kids. Yeah, which is insane. And then Republicans are saying global warming is a myth, drill baby drill. Well, obviously neither one of these are good perspectives.
Yeah, I had a really long talk with Lauren Chen this week on her show about this. Like,
Yeah, how'd that go?
Oh, it went really well, but basically, we need a new organizing principle for our economy. For Trump, he said it was going to be, make America great again, and this protectionist, isolationist vision of America. About the same time before that, there was this democratic ideal that we were going to rearrange our economy around climate change, something that I think makes sense, but clearly the American people and our politicians did not agree. I think we need a purpose and a vision for the future. And I think, Joe Biden has failed to do that.
Yeah, I keep like sarcastically advocating for this, but I get frustrated. It's like, we need conservative marketing for some progressive ideas. Like, you can't sell an F-150 by having a hippie with dreadlocks be like, yeah, bro, I'm here to protect the environment. Like, you need to have a dude slamming a monster with, his hat on backwards, shooting a machine gun out of the window. You need to make it aggressive. You need to make it sexy. You need to make it fun. And the truth is that I feel like our automotive industry, I feel like our infrastructure, I feel like Democrats largely, I feel like the left largely, they haven't made taking care of the environment sexy or fun. And that's a major challenge. So basically, if anybody wants to market environmentalism to conservatives, I'm not saying it's going to work, but I have some ideas. But anyway, so to bring it all back to kind of the topic at hand, which is like, I feel like this was motivated out of a sense of doom, out of a sense of angst, out of a sense of existential crisis. And not to tangent us too hard, but I do feel like the algorithm rewards these things. If you make 100%. Everything an existential crisis, then you're going to be more likely to be not taken seriously, but you're going to be more likely to reach as many ears as possible, because the truth is that excitement sells, blood sells, sex sells. So that's why the most hyperbolic people in political punditry are the most popular.
Yeah, no, that's dead on. So I want to go to a rather feisty tweet that you had today that I tweeted to you, but LOL. It seems some people had some issue with people saying about this person, quote, rest in power. So do you want to talk about your tweet on this situation?
Yeah, so I've been stirring shit. I've been stabbing the Hassan Piker fandom with sticks all day. They've been, it's like hitting a beehive or a wasp nest with a stick and then just like laughing as they're chasing you around the yard. So some lefty comes out and says that the gentleman who killed himself people are using rest in power on Twitter. That's inappropriate. Black people have requested multiple times for allies to not use this term. And I basically was like, wait, I could not imagine being a lefty who killed myself, ended my existence in order to prove my allyship to fucking lefties and Palestinians and all that kind of stuff. I'm the wokest motherfucker on the planet. I burn my balls off for you people. And then what you focus on is not the genocide, not the self-sacrifice, not Yemen, not holding people accountable, not protesting at the Israeli embassy, not any of that shit. You fight other lefties about the phrase rest in power. I couldn't fucking believe that shit. And kid not kin, not throwing anybody under the bus, but I think he's getting frustrated with me being like, lefties do this, lefties do that. I think he's getting sick of my Twitter feed. But yeah, I'm gonna call that out. I think they're crabs in a bucket.
Just true.
They're crabs in a bucket. They can't let anything even remotely productive happen.
Oh my God. Look, I'm not a person of colors, and maybe there's some ownership, maybe there's some emotion behind it that just I am not capable of grasp. But it's just the irony of dying for a cause and having that be so much of the focus on Twitter. It's just like, oh man. Oh, why would you do this?
And isn't that gonna so I'm not saying, we were kind of saying that you shouldn't literally martyr yourself for the cause, right? Like you shouldn't actually kill yourself or severely hurt yourself or something like that. But how does that make other potential self-sacrificial people feel when they see extreme examples of self-sacrifice? Again, I'm not valorizing what this gentleman did, but then you just see a bunch of the people that you're trying to help or protect basically stabbing you in the back while you're doing it. And I want to say that I could be wrong, but I feel like on the right, there's kind of there is a coalescence around people who are trying to do the right thing, even if they totally fuck it up. We will still we'll support the vibe, even if they were totally wrong about it. So for instance, I'm trying to think of Bulldozer Guy, right?
Yeah.
He was a gentleman. His business was getting screwed over by the local city council. They blocked in his driveway. They refused all of his appeals, all that kind of stuff. And out of a sense of frustration, he created a killdozer. So he basically put cement blocks on his bulldozer and he drove around the town. He didn't kill anybody, but he smashed millions of dollars of civic infrastructure as a final fuck you to the local government. And then he topped himself and they were about to call in an airstrike on him. They couldn't stop him.
Yeah.
Miraculously, he didn't kill anybody. I'm thankful for that. But then he topped himself in the killdozer. So, kind of wrong way
not
to do
endorsing
things.
But truly some amazing footage.
Kind of amazing. Even people who were on the right who were he's wrong, he should have worked a different way, he should have sold his business, he should have conceded to eminent domain, he should have done this, he shouldn't have done that. They're still cool. They don't spend endless hours shitting on him, which I'm not saying it's a perfect parallel, but it feels like a parallel.
Why did you build your killdozer out of a Chinese-made bulldozer? Can't you do it with an American?
There's no purity testing. There's no ideological testing. There's no this is how I would have done it, even though I will never do it. There's none of that shit. They're just this fucked up, but okay.
But at the core of this this is my frustration with the fringe left, because it's not about passing a certain policy so much of this online activism. It's about a hierarchy of who's been effed over more, who's been wronged by what, who gets to speak, which is why for every single leftist celebrity, it doesn't matter like what your positions are. Every single rando asshole with 20 Twitter followers is going to feel entitled to your mic. I don't think it's the same way on the right. I don't think y'all do that as much.
This actually cleanly segues into the next topic. So I kind of want to make sure that we got this topic down. So,
you do your thing. You do your thing.
Well, I was going to ask. So for me, I think killing yourself for a social cause is cringe. I think you should fight with every other means available. I don't like that there are some fringe lefties online who are encouraging people by proxy to engage in this behavior. I think that the hypocrisy about mental health and a variety of other issues is insane. So that's kind of my take. Do you have anything else in reference to this one?
I do want to say something really quickly. Like this conversation, I got a lot of talk at me about the debate we had last week. They included a lot of things like Israel, Palestine. And look, in the totality of my views, I think most people can see I'm a soft pro-Israel, right? I certainly think like the Palestinian people have some very, very good points. But in the aggregate, like I'm a little more sympathetic to Israel if you look at all of the history. That said, I really encourage, like there is definitely a valid pro-Palestinian point of view. My good friend Claire voices it all the time. My good friend Cenk Uygur voices it all the time. I really mean this for my friends on the left. These kinds of insane tactics are pushing people away from you. You're not helping your cause when you are the most unpleasant people to like interact with imaginable. And when you add that to like literally glorifying a violent, gruesome suicide, I think that your side of the conversation is important enough that you deserve a better spokesperson than this. So I urge you to come back to it.
Well, and I'll say, you know, kind of from like a more center right perspective or whatever. For me, this is like fodder. I love this. This is fantastic. Like fringe left showing their ass online. You know, this is a meme, obviously, but like lefties being encouraged to top themselves, like obviously don't do it. I'm just saying, like, you know, some people have been joking it's a problem that solves itself, and then also just like the horrible optics of it. It's just like this is a total dub for the right, because it's like, oh, you're literally encouraging people to kill themselves in the name of your cause. Literally, you're going to lose every single moderate to the right of Bernie Sanders. Anybody to the right of Bernie Sanders is walking away from any of those idiots. But so transitioning into the next topic, we were talking about political efficacy being about policy. So I want to explain something that I'm sure our good friend Queeman is going to react to very negatively. But I actually want to articulate like my mindset, because some people took issue with the fact that I was still thinking about potentially working with Vaush in the future, how I thought that Progressive Victory should consider like extending him an olive branch at some point, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to explain it very specifically. So to me, there will be political consequences for who wins the next election between Trump and Biden. Okay. Geopolitically, I think just off of his NATO statements alone, Trump is a potential disaster. His sympathy to Russia, his lack of support for Ukraine, his lack of belief in international American political hegemony, his distrust and hatred for NATO, all that stuff. I think it's a potential geopolitical disaster. And so I would rather, as flawed as the institution is, I would rather go with the institutionalists, because I feel like they are capable of navigating these very treacherous waters. Yeah. And so when it comes to what the electoral ground game, what Twitch and YouTube politics can do, is Twitch and YouTube politics is a bunch of ideological assholes, old, like you were talking about, all trying to virtue signal who has the best ideological perfection. That's all it is. That's all people give a fuck about here. Whereas what I think that Twitch and YouTube political energy can be used to, as an example for the Cincinnati event, knocked on 40,000 doors, had 8,000 conversations, signed up a few hundred people to register to vote, and basically reaffirmed with, again, around 8,000 people that they were going to participate in the election. That's the kind of stuff that is actually going to translate into an electoral result. So Vosh has a value here where he's not as large of a creator of destiny, but he does have like a well-motivated audience that could potentially go do canvassing. So do we forgive the fact that he consumed lolicon pornography on his computer and got caught doing so, has since apologized and run away from it? So for here's the crossroads. Is it such an optical L to have him participate that you just say, we can't even have you around us? You can't even advocate for your audience to go canvassing because you are so toxic to general electoral politics? Or do you say, hey, you can't talk to mainstream politicians and we can't have any big events with you, but we would want you to encourage your audience we want to maintain a friendly relationship and we want you to encourage your audience to canvass. So for me, that's more of a question than an answer. So what's your vibe?
I mean, I would not, like, I worked a lot for Okana and, talking to them and, for the Washington, D.C. event, getting them to appear with Vosh. Obviously, they had concerns after some of his past actions. I would not vouch for Vosh currently in this state for an event like that, just because it's a really big risk for the politicians, right? What I would if I were Vosh, and I've talked to him about this, what I think he should do is really focus on fundraising this cycle. He does have a really big audience, and there are a million like smaller like PACs, organizations that he can go out there for and ask his audience to basically donate money to it. This is a way to kind of start building back trust and to participate in this again. So I think it's going to be a while before I personally would work with him. But for all the left's talk about what we call it, restorative justice, I don't think that people make one mistake and they're disposable, right? In Vosh's case, he's made many mistakes. But I know the man, and I don't think he's disposable. I don't think Food Shops is disposable. Actually, I said this last week. I'll say it again. I think she is in a lot of pain, and I've tried to be very measured this week and not adding to someone who's clearly gotten the message that we don't agree with your ideas on Loli and your normalization of it, right? So does that make sense to you? I want to keep my distance for now. I would privately advise him, here's some ways you can get involved. I hope you'll be involved. But there just is going to be a price associating with you for a while, and you need to be realistic about that.
Yeah, I think hearing what you said, and also even checking out chat a little bit, where they're like, no, it's going to be, it's going to be too counterproductive. It's not going to be productive. It's going to hurt you, et cetera, et cetera. I think I'm a little bit like military brained or like Marine brain, which is like you have a mission, you attack the mission. If someone is willing to go alongside you, their personal morality doesn't really matter. I dealt with horrible people like in the Marine Corps. I love the Marine Corps. I love the Marines in general. I love most Marines. But the truth is that some of them are morally dubious. They weren't good people before they joined. They were disciplined bad guys now that they were in the service, and they were using their potentially like malevolent personality traits in order to be harnessed for like the national defense of the United States of America, which is a positive goal. But for me, that doesn't make you a good person. So I had to ignore let's just say some of the moral failings of my peers in the military in order to pursue a higher mission. And when it comes to politics or whatever, like I understand like optics is more of a concern, et cetera, but my vibe is more like, how do we get young, politically minded people in Twitch and YouTube politics to go out in order to canvass? Because the truth is that normies matter than Twitch and YouTube political people, and we need to get normies to vote. That's the mission. But I also do understand that I'm thinking with a completely different mindset than everybody else, where I have a North Star and everybody else is worried that you would never even get to the goal. Whereas I think Marines don't even think that way. They're just like, there's the goal. I either die or I get it. Those are the two options.
I think this is why you and I get along, because while I've never served like you have, I was basically a Navy brat. Grew up on bases. I certainly understand that mindset. It was the mindset of my family, right? So it's get a mission, go accomplish it. Like, I think this is why I've been pretty successful in this space. Just being willing to work with people. Yeah. But I think here you have to take a hard look at the success that's probable with your tactic, and I think it's just probably not going to work out well this time.
Well, and that's why I love being a grunt. Like, somebody says, hey, Cotter, you want to do that? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Let's give it a shot. Because, again, the best case scenario is we succeed, at which point we've accomplished a goal together. And then the worst case scenario is we failed, but at least we failed daring to do something better than what it is right now, which is just bitching on Twitch poll. That's all that's happening right now. So if we accomplish more than bitching, we win. If we succeed in our goal, we win. But anyways, so so that do you want to I want to expand the conversation, because that was my first concern that I felt was a decent segue. But I guess the real thing that's going on right now is like the Loli con fallout. So Commentary YouTube has grabbed a hold of the Vosh discourse. They're releasing essays, they're going through the drama, they're doing all that kind of stuff. They're really digging into Vosh, Keffels, Tipster. They're ripping them apart. And then from my vibe, there's kind of like you can only cancel yourself, but everybody's kind of acting like these are death knells for these creators. So how do you feel about the fallout from the drama related to Vosh, Keffels, Tipster, and food shops?
Oh, Keffels is my friend, right? And we don't agree on everything, certainly. And she's critiqued me in the past. So I guess, like, my people are not going to hear this, but my analysis of Keffels is, I think about when I left rehab 20 years ago. Which was really difficult, right? I'm one of the things I'm proudest of in life is when you leave rehab for drug addiction, you have an 80% chance of relapsing within a year and a 90% chance of relapsing within 5 years. And I'm really proud of the fact I've never relapsed. I was in that, I took my lessons seriously. I think I had a high degree of self-control. And, I went on, and I think I've done good things with my life. I think it's so much harder for Keffels because she went into being in the public eye. And, the substance addiction doesn't resolve itself instantly. And, I think her being such a public figure and getting harassed all the time, it's not that I don't understand people's objection to what she's saying. It's that I think it's cruel in a way they're just not calculating and would not understand if they had not been to rehab. So that's kind of my analysis on that, which I'm sorry if it's too liberal frou-frou for everyone out there, but that's how I feel. Tipster is someone on the side. He's a really sweet guy that's just ultimately really loyal to his friends. I don't understand. He's so good at not saying things that are crazy. I kind of don't understand the objection to him. As far as food shops, I think we covered this last week. She's made such disastrous opinions about herself public that I think she's made her own bed, and I think it's gonna be a miracle if she can bring her career back from here.
No, that's I appreciate your amount of grace. I feel like a lot of people don't have grace or mercy or forgiveness. And I come from like a Christian background. I literally went to church every single Sunday from the time I was 0 to the time I was 18. And I do value a lot of the morality that was imparted onto me. I try to carry with me going forward, especially the parts that I deem most positive. And when you said that, like, people aren't disposable, even the worst people are deserving of mercy and forgiveness, especially if they atone and they try to improve themselves and all that kind of stuff. That's my moral framework as well. Like there's no person who's totally unforgivable, except for maybe like serial killers and rapists. And even then, God could forgive
and
them.
And Rose Mullet.
Jesus. So I'm not even going to dig in there because I don't want new lore on Rose. But that society could still punish a criminal even with the death penalty, and then it would be up to God or religion or spirituality to decide whether or not to forgive them, right? So when it comes to these folks, a lot of people are acting like it's over. And what I've seen consistently from controversial creators is that if they take their lickings, if they get their ass kicked, digitally stomped, but then they just come back in a few weeks and start creating content again, there will be an audience that you can start building from. And so
it's 100% true. Yeah.
Yeah. And people being sympathetic, like Tipster is being sympathetic to his friend, Keffels. Keffels is being sympathetic to her friend, Vosh. Vosh fucked up, probably thinking that he was too cool for school and too smart to get caught and all that kind of crap. But he still has things that he's passionate about, and there still seems to be a built-in lefty audience that enjoys his content. So for me, like, yeah, are they all going to take a reputational hit as a result of being involved in this controversy? Absolutely. But some people are acting like it's over, and I don't think it's over at all. I literally think if they post through the pain for 2 months, we're going to move on to the next drama, and nobody's going to give a shit.
What I've learned, because I've been a public figure, for a decade now, right? And what I've learned is, to a certain extent, the modern version of being a celebrity requires controversy, and you've just got to accept that a lot of people are going to hate you, and they're going to take the most bad faith interpretation of it, and you're going to make mistakes that are going to be in the public eye. I did an interview this week, and the main thing the guy knew about me was that Moonrocks tweet, which I stand by, because we should think about like privatizing the moon. But it was a bad tweet, and it was very poorly stated. Yeah, stuff like that is just the cost of being.
I lost you a little bit. Who argued with you that privatizing the moon was bad, or was that just not sufficiently lefty?
Okay, so the Moonrocks tweet that everyone goes after me on. This was it was an interview with a major person. So this was in response to Elon Musk talking about his desire to basically build a base on the moon. Sweet. And with the militarization of space. There's space, and the moon particularly is a really, really valuable tactical battle space, right? You can jam communications, you can launch mass down to the planet, and it's gonna destroy things. This is how dinosaurs died, right? And I was talking about how if you want to think about an asteroid hitting the Earth, I was talking about it in kilotons of a nuclear weapon hitting the Earth. Mm-hmm. And people went to town on this, but I was right. I'm 100% right. You could orbitally bombard the Earth from the moon, and it would be
the rods of God, using tungsten rods launched at a high speed into atmosphere. That way, you have the kinetic effect of a nuclear blast without the radiation fallout. So no, and that's a thing. So I kind of had almost like a revelation within the past few weeks, where I realized I like these science fiction and science fantasy dystopian futures, and I like them because there's a human willpower to overcome incredible odds. And I think that's the narrative core, is that humanity, no matter what its trials and travails, will push through. And that's what's admirable about all these stories. And then I kind of realized I've been listening to all these doomer pieces of garbage tell me that the world is going to end in 10 years, and they've been saying that for 30 years. So maybe I need to stop listening to these doomers, and I need to start having whatever minimal impact I can in shaping the future, both for my children and for the world. And even if it's dystopian or weird, or there's super hurricanes or whatever, I admire people in stories who push on no matter the odds. So why am I being such a pussy in real life? And I think that's what I think that's the takeaway that really I would want people in the audience to take away as well, is You are probably here because you're familiar with Brianna or you're familiar with myself through Twitch and YouTube politics. You are used to pundits telling you that it's over, and it's never fucking over. Like, stop believing them. Let's keep pushing. Let's figure it out. Let's make cool shit. Let's stop listening to all these doomer fucking assholes who are capitalizing on your time and energy.
Talk about the trans group chat I was in last year and the drama we got into. I think what I would want people to know about that group chat is 99% of it was a bunch of younger trans people in there that I think they took an attitude that you would appreciate, Connor. Not that you're trans, but just sharing a attitude that they didn't think they could share in the trans community, that they were responsible for their own destiny and they needed to get surgery and work on their voice and do all those kinds of things and just make their own happiness. And 99% of that chat was just people wanting to talk about their own destiny and how to get there. And trying to talk to, just basically adults about that.
Irreverent.
Like, how do I get a job? Yeah.
Yeah. Irreverent, mean, funny people, regardless of gender or race or whatever, are always my favorite people. So when I saw a bunch of trans gals shit talking other trans gals or shit talking other lefties or shit talking other progressives or whatever, I was like, this is sick. This sounds like a great group chat. This is fucking awesome. And I kind of wanted the entire group chat to come out and say, like, cope and seethe, you fucking retards, and then just keep going. Like, that's what I wanted. But there's always, like, and I'm not saying people did this, by the way, I'm just saying there's a perception. I think a lot of people stayed quiet because, like, in order to stay a progressive or a lefty or a liberal, there's a certain amount of, like, self-flagellation that is expected when you're caught doing things that are not progressive, lefty, or liberal. Which, by the way, is why it's fun to be on the right, because nobody gives a fuck as long as you own your shitty behavior. It's like, yeah, I said a racist joke. I thought it was fucking funny. Go fuck yourself. That flies on the right. It does not fly on the left.
Well, you should know everyone in that group chat absolutely loves you. And most of them are gay, so it's okay. But they're really into Warhammer and they love your Warhammer stuff.
Excellent. Excellent. We gain more. Every sub counts. So so yeah, so all right. Then I'm trying to think of any other Loli fallout that I saw that was interesting. I think what's interesting is I kind of see worlds aligning between commentary and Twitch and YouTube politics, because commentary likes drama. They like any kind of internet drama. I think Twitch and YouTube politics had this veneer of, like, intellectualism, but the truth is that the highest performing stuff has always been drama. And so, we're kind of like, Twitch and YouTube politics is kind of dead, but it still offers, like, interesting insights into fucked up, like, ideological battles with interesting and weird personalities. And so I kind of see these worlds colliding. And I don't really have a question. I'm more just, like, stating that I find it interesting that we have Nick Diorio, Turkey Tom, I'm trying to think of who else, Willie Mac Show, all these creators who are not just talking shit about Hassan Piker, they're also hanging out with Destiny, creating content about Vosh, creating content about Keffels, Tipster, et cetera, et cetera. It's an interesting convergence.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, don't you think a little bit of this is cynically chasing that algorithm, though? I mean, I don't know. I understand what they're doing. I understand the reasons behind it, but I can only watch so many videos going after Vosh and Hassan. It just feels a little cynical at some point.
Yeah, but that's why you have to get into the commentary space, because then they're talking about, like, all right, so for those of you who don't know, Glup Shido is a Twitter meme about Star Wars where they're like, oh my god, Glup Shido is in the next Star Wars, and nobody knows who Glup Shido is, and it's like some side character who was a side character in an animated series that 90% of the Star Wars community didn't even watch. That's like the joke, is that it's like an esoteric person that nobody fucking knows. But that's why I like commentary, is because they will take the dramas of effectively Glup Shido Discord and Twitter and YouTube and Twitch users, and then they'll You know, that they'll basically make an interesting drama about this person slept with this person broke up with this person claimed that they were a werewolf, vampire, zombie, cult god, this person, you know, stole money from this person, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's just like, it's like watching Game of Thrones, but with like retarded internet autists. That's the way that I enjoy my commentary.
I love it. This is a separate thing I want to do for the channel, but I want us to do a show called Twitter Live. And I want to dial into the broadcast feature, and we'll stream it on Twitch. And I just want to have all the shitty tweets of the day and just explain to an audience what everyone was mad at on Twitter today, and
Literally.
just make it a show. I would watch that every single day.
Yeah, literally so I'm expecting to hit 100K by the end of the year. That'll be enough revenue from Warhammer that can help subsidize the Twitch and YouTube political ambitions that we have. So I would love to go live every single day, and I would love to do a segment like that daily where you're just collecting the best, you know, internet autism just to do a 20-minute or 30-minute segment on it. But I do want to thank the chat real quick. So Team T, Todd Fulton, L, Nico Pluto, Andy Lo-Fi, Brandon Myers, Lasombra, and Colonel Angus all became, I believe, members on YouTube. It doesn't really tell me specifically where it is. That typically means somebody donated or gifted memberships. That's normally Froggy style, but if it was not Froggy style, I thank you, whoever did the gifted membership. So 07 to the people in the chat.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, do you have anything else on the Lolicon Fallout? I could probably like tear apart a little bit extra, but honestly, I feel like everybody's been beating this.
You do your thing. If you've got more to say, I talked about it so much on Wick this week, so you go ahead.
To be honest, I've consumed so much content that at this point my brain is mush in relation to the topic. If I was to summarize my perspective, I think that you have a brain. I think that your brain is wired to engage with things that you repeat. So people who develop discipline and willpower and strength and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of psychological like reinforcement that once you build you build your habits, and then your habits build you. So the habits you choose to engage in matter. And one of the habits you should not engage in is jerking off to depictions of children. That's like, I know, hot take. I'm being very judgmental, very moralistic, very conservative here. I understand that might be off-putting to the lefty audience, but don't jerk off to depictions of kids. It does hurt people. Not, you know, at minimum, it hurts yourself. And it hurts that the artist drew that in the first place. You're reinforcing a pattern of behavior that's negative for society. Don't fucking do it. And then the excuses and apologia, I think it all just boils down to relationships where people like each other and have benefited from each other's clout, so they feel like they have to cover each other's back. And the truth is, when your friend fucks up, it's okay to say, I love my friend. I'm still going to be their friend after this. However, they fucked up in this regard, and I think they need to change this behavior, or I don't know whether or not I will be able to be their friend in the future. Yeah. That's an okay thing to say.
I think that's really well said. And I think it's okay on the left for us to say we have standards, right? I almost shouldn't say this. Did you see the clip this week of Katie Porter, who I like? I like, by the way. Did you see this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
Okay, we need to go so we can show clips on here from the show. So we'll
I mean, I could, if you wanna DM me the clip, I could try. I could pull it up for the audience.
I'd have to find it.
Okay.
But basically, this was a clip of Katie Porter talking about pedophiles and being like, yeah, pedophilia is basically, it's a choice, right? It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means you've got a predilection. And you're just like, oh no, Katie, don't say this. Like,
is she elected? Is she a news reporter? What's her vibe?
She's running for the Senate, dude.
Oh,
she's running for the Senate.
Okay, elected officials. Not that we have like a whole bunch of elected officials watching us. We can talk about Lolicon because we are stuck in the Twitch and YouTube political sphere where a bunch of autists do very stupid, degenerate things. Elected officials, do not talk about Lolicon pornography. Do not talk about pedophilia. Don't talk about any of that stuff. It's going to be allergic to your brand. If you try to approach a topic with any other nuance besides like, should remain illegal. People who have that should go to jail and get therapy. Like if you have any other take besides that, you're going to be cannibalized by everyone. So yeah, don't. I wouldn't play with fire as an elected official in that regard. Absolutely not.
But the problem is, she's talking about it like it's one step away from like adding P into LGBT. It's just like, Katie, no, it's okay to condemn things and bad ideas. Like, this is a problem, like what our good friend Dev, short founder Taku, talks about, is the purity spiral, right? Because like we have an impulse to say, okay, we are accepting of, say, kink, right? And that's good. You're a little bit more open-minded, but the problem is it doesn't stop anywhere, right? I think here at the left, we need to be willing to say, you know what, this is the standard, this is as far as we go. And I think like pedophilia, that is a good place to stop the train, in my view.
Yeah, and by the way, like you can make policy appeals to. Yeah, okay, so somebody in Twitch chat, Headless Chicken, is upset that they feel like we're mischaracterizing Katie Porter. I don't think that anything. I don't think that Brianna said anything negative. For instance, like, it's a predilection. It doesn't make you a bad person objectively. You need to get help, et cetera, et cetera. I'm saying things now. But
there you go. You can put her words up on stream.
Okay. All right. You DM to me.
Yep.
All right. So
people as a threat.
Thanks for the fact check on this, by the way, Helpless Chicken. Genuinely appreciate it. We want to.
Yeah, we don't
get this stuff right.
I think that Brianna and I are both motivated by we both have political agendas. We both want to see our ideas implemented in the world. However, I think one of our first principles that we share is truth. So we don't want to just dogpile somebody or shit talk somebody just because it's fun. We actually want our criticisms to be true. So let's check out the entire clip for the sake of context.
The groomer narrative is an age-old lie to position LGBTQ plus people as a threat
do you want me to see
to
if
kids,
I can do it on my side?
what it does is deny them access to public spaces. It stokes fear and can even stoke violence. So from our calculation, it looks like about 99% of your complaints, they basically acted on one or two of the 100 plus complaints you filed. Instead of taking them down, Twitter elevated them, allowing them to reach an approximate 72 million users. This is not just about what happens online. What happens online translates into real harms in people's lives. Your organization recently released a report analyzing the 500 most viewed, most influential tweets that identified LGBTQ people as so-called
Sorry, I still can't hear you.
What's that? So I'm watching it with chat. They are getting the audio.
Okay, cool.
Do you? Okay. And then are you able to get the audio as well, or are we watching it without you right now?
I've seen it already. So
all right. So yeah, we'll watch the full context and then we'll catch up at the end.
Mr. Robinson, according to its own hateful content policy, does Twitter allow posts calling LGBTQ people groomers?
No, I mean, Twitter, along with Facebook and many others, have community guidelines. It's about holding users accountable to those guidelines and acknowledging that when we use phrases and words like groomers and pedophiles to describe people, individuals in our communities that are mothers, that are fathers, that are teachers, that are doctors, it is dangerous. And it's got one purpose. It is to dehumanize us and make us feel like we are not a part of this American society.
It's not, this allegation of groomer and pedophile. It is alleging that a person is criminal somehow and engaged in criminal acts merely because of their identity, their sexual orientation, their gender identity. So this is clearly prohibited under Twitter's content, yet you found hundreds of these posts on the platform. Your team filed complaints about these posts, correct?
Yes.
And how often did Twitter act to take down these posts, which violated its own content policy?
Very rarely.
Your report notes that these radicalizing posts, these groomer posts, these other posts that attack LGBTQ communities are related to acts in the real world. What happens online is often reflective of what happens in the real world. After Governor DeSantis of Florida, passed his so-called Don't Say Gay bill, What trends did you observe online with regard to grooming related discourse?
Unfortunately, we saw a 400% increase on Twitter of this sort of hateful language, particularly calling our community members groomers and pedophiles. And we know that whether or not the bills move into effect, the lasting impact of that online bullying, of defining our communities in that way, it sticks, especially with our kids.
Well, I just want to, my time has expired, but I just want to say I'm proud to say gay. I'm proud to stand with the gay community, and I'm proud that you're all here today as part of our country and giving us testimony. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Yeah, so I think I get it. Headless chicken was, I would say, correct. The transition in the phrase is weird, in the phrasing is weird, but she was talking about, to my understanding, that gay people in general are being accused of being groomers, and then they're being labeled this way, and then they're being attacked that way. So isn't it violating Twitter's terms of service that they're being attacked for their identity, sexual orientation, et cetera, et cetera?
So Dev, friend of this show and my friend, but I seems to have shared something that was not quite true.
Listen, we spread a little misinformation on the internet, okay? It happens.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, but here's the thing. That's because there is a little bit of a push in some segments of, the fringe left, online left, that I would say that they, Hunter Avalone's done this. I think Vosh has done this. I think even Destiny has played with the idea. I can't remember a specific Destiny thing. So if I'm speaking out of line, that's fine. But the argument that I've heard from these, at least Hunter and Vosh, is that wood chipper memes and saying that you're going to kill every pedo that exists pushes every person who has even a thought of attraction to a child into the proverbial closet, right? For a lot of people on the right wing, including myself, I say, good, keep that shit to yourself. Don't fucking, don't mention that or whatever. But what they say is that those urges, when they're repressed, will lash out eventually and end up with abuse. So wouldn't it be better to have less social stigma around this, chemical imbalance, predilection, abuse, history, whatever, that leads to this attraction? And would it be better to send them to therapists?
Yeah.
Before they offend. And then the rhetorical cudgel that they use is a giant hammer, as they say, this leads to less children being abused. We don't know that. It logically follows. So there is this push to, quote unquote, destigmatize, pedophilic attraction. And so I think that on the right, it does feel slippery slope-ish. And also, I never want to lose the ability to socially castigate or stigmatize or speak negatively of the sexual attraction to children. I think that should always be allowed to be socially stigmatized because it is an antisocial behavior, because it is something that makes society worse. It is something that doesn't have a correct way to do it. And so as a result, it needs to remain socially negative, at least.
Yeah, I am just Southern enough to think that not everyone needs to know your business about everything. And, I understand, like if you're a pedophile, you should have access to a therapist. You should be able to go, do that therapy, do that work, with your therapist, right? That certainly doesn't mean I have to hear about it, condone it, put all that stuff first. You know what this is? It's there's this need to overshare and demystify literally everything, especially around all of this. It's not really helpful, if that makes a lot of sense to you. When did people become so used to oversharing everything? It's just I don't need to know about food shops. Yes, fair. I don't need to know what food shops is masturbating to. And I didn't need Stardust to review her goon stash either. It was just too much information.
Yeah, so this gets into an interesting concept, actually. This gets into one of Sitch and Adam's favorite topics, which is profilicity. So
profilicity? What does this mean?
Yeah, so profiles. Back before the age of the internet. I was born during this era. I was born in the late 80s. So, you know, internet was just becoming a thing, and it was very slow and didn't have a lot of features and all this kind of crap. So what happened was you were just a person. Touching grass was 100% of the time. Everybody was touching grass all of the time. They left their house, they touched grass, they played Foursquare in the neighborhood, they rode their bikes, they met people in public venues, they went to the local communities, et cetera, et cetera. And so touching grass was the norm. Towards the beginning of the 90s and the thousands, internet got a lot better. It went from dial-up to cable internet. And then as a result, internet access became very aggressive and real and a part of young people's lives, including my own. And so what happened was it was so much easier to jump onto a computer to have some level of social interaction, very cheap. It only costs you your power bill and the bill for your internet, and you can have as many social interactions as you want, and it doesn't come with any of the inconveniences of touching grass. And so people lived in a hybridized reality where part of their lives were online and part of their lives were real. And so we're still dealing with the consequences of that. But when we're talking about like young people in particular who have grown up in the era where the internet was omnipresent, they have always grown up with a digital profile. When they're kids, they're playing games where they customize avatars. When they're going on social media, they're picking descriptors and identities about themselves. When they're posting things, they go touch grass in order to post things online, in order to gain social clout in a social game online. And so prophilicity is this like psychological concept of being able to choose what you are because you're making a digital representation rather than you just being somebody in the real world and then you happen to post some of your experiences to the digital landscape. And so all of this to, you know, kind of wrap it up, the interesting thing about this is that like, why are people oversharing? It's because it's part of their profile. It's part of their attempts to gain digital social clout, which is the new game that everybody plays.
No, that's actually really insightful. I mean, I'm thinking about my friend Naomi, who, you know, she's a trans woman. She's the one that had that huge thing about breastfeeding her child and like inducing it with hormones and all of that. And I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, that's really beautiful. And then on the other, I'm like, well, I can obviously see how this is going to be weaponized against a whole bunch of people. And it was, which is why the NHS is now, you know, discussing this. I don't know. I think there's a point where I think there's got to be a distinction between like your public persona and your private persona, right? Like I'm not out there, you know, talking about like the most like sensitive parts of my marriage, right? Like it's just, I don't know. I 100% don't get it. Did you see this New York Times story that came out? I think it was 2 days ago about these moms that basically, if you have a child that's under the age of 12, you can't start an Instagram account, but your mom can. So there are a bunch of Instagram moms that are out there taking pictures of their prepubescent children, basically, putting them on the internet, bikinis, all this kind of stuff. And the algorithm is doing what the algorithm is going to do, and it's sending them straight into the arms of pedophiles. And it's talking about how some of these girls are growing up, and because they've only been valued by their looks their whole life, they're not really studying in school. They are preparing to go into OnlyFans, right? It's kind of linked to what you're talking about, which is that everything is performative online. And I think, at least for you and I, we grew up in an age where we were able to have a sense of identity before that, which I think is very psychologically healthy, that kind of distance. I don't think this generation of kids is going to have that.
Yeah, we are going in, we're just going to have to grapple with that reality. We did have a few reactions in chat to the Naomi incident, and I'll confess, I didn't have a positive reaction on social media when that came out. I'll tell you the instinct, and maybe we could just kind of poke at it a little bit. And I don't want to be mean to your friend or rude to your friend. But so for me, it seems like we're consistently like as like normies, right? Like I consider myself fairly normie. I'm of course like an internet autist who loves like science fiction stuff, and there's like 10,000 ways in which I'm not a normie, but I'm also like, you know, straight, white, married, 2 kids, 2 dogs, house, right? So it feels like there's been this like whirlwind of shit that just kind of pops up on social media, and we're just kind of asked to be good with at all times. And so if it's 2 men having homosexual sex in luchador masks at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday on my Netflix advertisements, you know, that's something that I'm just supposed to be chill with. If it's the TV show Ozark, where a homosexual man has a really aggressive, like borderline abusive blowjob scene with another character, I'm just expected to like kind of sit there and watch it. And, you know, I could come up with some other examples. There's ones that I don't give a flying fuck about. Like, for instance, like Buzz Lightyear, the lesbian couple or whatever. They literally like held hands once. They kissed each other on the cheek. They had a birthday.
Mild.
It was very normal, wholesome, whatever. Luchador homosexual sex at 2 p.m., a little bit more objectionable. And so I'm sympathetic to the argument that it's like, hey, the straights have been shoving all their bullshit in our faces for fucking decades. But my answer is not for the straights to shove all their sexual degeneracy on everyone and then the gays have to fucking stare at it. It's to say, everybody stop sharing your fucking crazy shit with us. Let's all back off a little bit.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. And you know, it's
well.
It's,
and can we just address? Can we address the part? So I think the question was like, you thought it was beautiful. So my presumption is that she had transitioned. She wanted a maternal connection to her child. Consulted with a doctor, got the thing or whatever. They didn't think that it was going to be a health risk, and as a result, they did it for that maternal connection. Is there anything else to kind of piece apart there?
As far as I know, you know, she's my friend. I take her at her word. So, you know, it's just like I saw that and I'm like, oh, this is going to make, you know, trans people a huge target for the right. It's exactly what happened. You know, she actually had to go to a lab and like have them scientifically test her milk to see if it was going to be safe. So, yeah, all this is just to say a little bit of discretion, I think, is okay.
And by the way, that's a criticism. While still trying to be tactful and polite, that would have been my criticism at the time. Is that I know that, or at least I was corrected multiple times that like lactation can be induced in males through hormones or whatever. But I think that when we live in an era where we're being told constantly that we have microplastics in our food, that we have like hormones pumped through our chicken and our cows, and it's inducing puberty at an early age and all that kind of stuff. So for a person to take that leap and kind of prioritize their sense of maternity and emotional connection with their child over necessarily like the studied health of their child, that is what I find like objectionable to the point of frustration or anger. Is the priority should be the child and the health of the child, not your desire for maternal connection.
100%. You know, to be honest, I didn't know anything about this before it started. So, yeah, I fully agree. Probably good that, you know, she got that tested and knows that it's safe. But, you know, at the same point, it's like, you know, I wish, and this is something I feel about the gay community too. I feel this every single time we get into the kink and pride discourse, right? It's like, you know, it's not that I'm a prude. It's that why do we in 2024 need to make the public face of the gay community the most sexual stereotypes imaginable about that, right? Like we're just the normal trans women out there, you know. I wish we got to see a little bit more of that, you know. And I don't know. I think you know, any woman getting to experience motherhood, I think that's beautiful. Like you saw, I don't know. I just a little bit of discretion.
I'm I am very thankful that I know you, that I know Riley Grace Rochong, that I know Toftaj, that I know a few other gals. Because when I feel like the LGBTQIA plus discourse is getting too hot for me, I can be like, okay, well, you know, I know some, we're all insane, but relatively sane trans gals who I like and respect a lot. So and that is my thing is I'm a prude, and I'm kind of unashamed in that way. Like I will talk about my younger experiences, the positives and the negatives. I will talk about how I wasn't always like a public prude. I will talk about how I was negative and this, that, the other. But I do think that some level of like social conservatism or sexual conservatism is correct, where the whole point at the end of the day is we're mortal creatures. We're only going to be here for so long. A lot of us want to have children, and we want them to be healthy, happy, and successful. The best ways to do that are to raise healthy, happy children. How do we do that? And the truth is that like 50-person, you know, gangbang orgies methed out of your fucking mind without condoms is obviously not how you get healthy, happy children. And so if there's only having sex in the missionary position, not to climax for the woman, you know, in like a Mormon gown is over here, and then the fucking meth orgies without condoms are over here, there's very clearly something healthy in between these two, you know, concepts.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, maybe it's just my conservative upbringing. I think there's some things that should be between you and your partner. So that's how I feel.
Okay. Well, I think we poked at that one enough for me. So, and
what's next on the agenda? Do
well,
we have other spicy stuff?
There's orgy stands in the chat. So they did not like they did not like the trans breast milk, but they also got offended that I insulted their orgies. So, you know, we very clearly have a centrist audience. So I think the next one, even if people are going to be predictably able to figure out our takes even before we say them, that Trump is sweeping. It's unfortunate, but he got, you know, I want to say 55%. Oh, I think he actually got like 60% in South Carolina. He also got, I want to say 60% in Michigan. And so it might be 55-45 in South Carolina. But yeah, so it looks like he, barring any major criminal or health issue, he is the presumptive nominee. So I know this isn't necessarily unexpected, but what is your vibe on the Republican Party and where it's going right now?
I love that Nikki Haley's just staying in the race and effing him up as much as she can. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a Democrat. I love to see it. I'm happy to see it. You know, not unexpected. I also think it's...
Hold on, I got to pause you real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm getting bashed by a conservative for saying that there's like orgy defenders in the chat. But then I'm being bashed by the orgy defenders because they're saying I'm a fake conservative because Greco-Romans had orgies and I'm not conservative enough because I'm not conserving classic Western European tradition. So I can't fucking win. I can't win. So, all right. Anyway, sorry for interrupting, but I thought it was hilarious that I was getting my ass kicked by the Greco-Roman orgy conservative defenders and the Christian monogamy defenders. So anyway, sorry, please continue.
Yeah, actually, I switched sides. I'm on the Greco-Roman orgy defending side now. You're completely wrong.
I'm getting fucking stomped.
No, I loved it. Like, basically, the Republican Party's got a Bernie Sanders this time around. Congratulations, y'all. Her name is Nikki Haley. She's a messy little bitch. And I love it. And, you know, it's so funny because Nikki Haley, like, of course I would never vote for her. Even though I think on foreign policy, she's pretty damn good. But I don't know what to say. Like, we need to make our peace. He's going to be the nominee. I'm not sure he can win for your party, but there you go. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, so some people are already calling Neocon Nikki, and Rhino Nikki. So here's the thing. It's like I do side with Nikki Haley over Donald Trump 7 days out of the week. And also I will be attending the primary so I can basically do a protest vote against, you know, Trump and hopefully get her 40%, 45% in the state of Florida. and then just say, like, listen, not all of us are down with Trump. We do think he's fucked up. We do think he's leading the party in a bad direction, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing my protest vote in order to at least say that, right? The problem that I have is I think the establishment is needed right now in order to maintain the geopolitical and economic stability necessary for the republic to continue.
Yep.
However, her rhetoric is so old and I think out of step where most Americans are, that not only does it make her vulnerable to Trump, but it also fails to address even people amongst her supporters. So when she's giga hawkish, I'm not giga hawkish. I'm a war on terror veteran. I don't want people. I don't want to be invading Iraq or invading Iran or invading like another sovereign nation in order to install a government. That was a fucking disaster. We spent $2 trillion. We lost I think 5,000 servicemen, and we lost like tens of thousands of contractors. We caused like humanitarian disasters in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And you can crow about our motivations until the cows come home. You can also crow about all our humanitarian efforts on their behalf. It ended up not being enough. And so what's needed is like, yeah, we need to be strong, but we don't need to be so hawkish that we're like saber rattling constantly. And I think she's intelligent enough to not necessarily follow through on the saber rattling rhetoric. But when I hear that kind of saber rattling rhetoric, I'm like, you don't fucking get it. Like a shitload of Americans are not willing to send their fucking kids overseas to fight in these fucking forever wars anymore. Shitloads, including veterans.
I have to tell you, I was, this week as I was prepping for Lauren Chen's show, I did a lot of research on what the state of the world is. I had a tweet today that went really well about this. We've got 3 basically fronts of war that are going on right now. Obviously Ukraine, Russia. You've got Hezbollah, Hamas, Israel, the Houthis, that whole mess as the Middle East continues to disintegrate. And, you've got a very strong possibility that China will try to take over Taiwan, which would be a point where, we would probably go to war with China about that. So I think it's really interesting, Connor, because, again, I haven't served. And it's like Nikki Haley, it's probably easier for me to say like I support that because I haven't seen the human cost like you have. But I think there's a really, really strong argument that we need to be building more like maritime infrastructure in the form of destroyers, aircraft carriers, all that kind of stuff. I think that I think that as the rules-based order continues falling apart, I expect this state of conflict to be the norm. So I don't know, maybe I'm the bad person because I want us to protect our American values.
No, this is interesting. So I could have war on terror brain, but I felt, and I think a lot of people felt, even though I was a part of the logistics tail when I deployed, I felt like a lot of people, particularly trigger pullers, particularly drone guys, particularly special forces guys, they felt like our logistics tail was insane. Basically,
what do you mean by logistics tail? Can you help me understand?
Yeah,
that?
so if there's like the warfighter on the end, let's just imagine him like a snake or a dragon or whatever. Sure. There's the head of the snake, so to speak. And so that's the one that has fangs. They got the venom. They're going to do the combat. They're going to do the killing, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a required logistical support tail, so to speak, that does all the support functions for the warfighter to be able to do what they do, for the special forces to be able to do what they do, for them to, integrate into society, fight, et cetera, et cetera. What happened, though, was that the United States military in Afghanistan and in Iraq, we effectively built small cities at the airports, which isn't like horrible. But we built small cities that were like, we had crazy shit. We had lobster, we had steak like once a week, which was great. I'm not complaining about that. Fantastic gym equipment, air conditioned cans, contractors out the wazoo. Every squad, by the time that I got to Iraq, they were driving like a $250,000 truck outfitted with $500,000 worth of jamming equipment in order to prevent IEDs from hitting trucks. It was actually fucking insane. And on one hand, I'm really appreciative of the technological innovations that were implemented in order to try to preserve American lives. On the other hand, I think that a lot of the warfighters thought that that shit was like insanely unnecessary, and that a much smaller footprint would not only cause less collateral damage to the locals, but the locals would be more willing to work with a smaller footprint. And so for me, maybe I just listened to too many grunts who were, you know, crowing about their own prowess too much. But what seemed to me was that we could cut down 50%, 60%, 70% of the boots on the ground presence while still maintaining an efficient logistics hub, and then train local forces to do what we were trying to get them to do. And basically what happened was we had this like crazy metrics game where we kept telling ourselves that we were succeeding, whereas anybody who was on the trigger pulling side or on the training side, they would tell you that we're wasting a lot of time and energy, we're not getting the results that we need, these people aren't going to fight the way that you want them to fight, and as a result, we're wasting our time. But because it was a perpetual motion machine, we couldn't stop it for like a decade.
Right. So what, and this is an honest question, what percentage of that do you attribute to Bush and Rumsfeld? Because it seems to me
shitloads.
that
KBR and Halliburton? Yeah. KBR and Halliburton was basically, it was their way to do nation building. They thought they were going to be able to build Iraq back from scratch. And they made their friends billions of dollars as a result.
Right, because it seems to me that, I'm not trying to be Team Democrat here, but it seems to me that, the Obama era, there were a lot of examples of operations that went relatively well. I mean, most recently we had a very wide operation to take out, basically to counter the Somali pirates who, threatened our worldwide shipping infrastructure in a very similar way that the Houthis are, right? We had, plans to take back cities that had been captured by, Hezbollah, right? So I think that I feel like there's almost this false narrative out there that our military can't do anything anymore. And I don't think that's true. I think that just because we had a particularly inept president, 20 years ago, I don't think that means the military today sucks. And,
oh yeah, that's the biggest cope on the planet is the people being like, oh, it's a woke military, it's all falling apart. I don't believe that for a fucking second. People were talking shit about the war on terror generation and how they were soft compared to like the 80s kids. And the truth is the 80s babies, not the 80s babies, the 80s veterans, their first deployment was the war on terror. Because they missed 1992. They missed the Persian Gulf. And the Persian Gulf was a really small war that was over really quickly. So most of them didn't see any action. Their first action was the war on terror. So those people were talking shit about the war on terror generation being too soft, being too stupid, not being disciplined enough, et cetera, et cetera. And then the war on terror generation basically carried it for 20 years. So, yeah, so I agree with you. I just, I agree with you that the American military is phenomenal at what it does. Some people in chat are saying that I'm listening to door kickers too much, but I still think that there is a lot of waste.
Cypher, by the way, I appreciate him quite a bit. Yeah.
Which one?
Cypher. He's great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But my problem, I guess, is I think we could do the same job way more efficiently. And also we could get better partners. So I think that when you have a large footprint and you say it's my way or the highway, it builds bad relationships with locals. Whereas when you have a small footprint, you kind of talk to them about what they're technologically and logistically capable of handling. You develop technologies and logistic support chains that make sense for them. And then you help support those systems grow organically. I think that's a way better way to do it. Just as an example, real quick, so people know what I'm talking about. We gave Afghanistan a modern air force. We gave them transport planes. We gave them jets. We gave them a few other things in order to make sure that they were able to transport their guys to the fight. What happened was all the high-end equipment that we gave them was cannibalized within 6 months. And all of the planes that like we gave them or whatever, they cannibalized them in order to keep the few that they were flying. And then they never replaced their parts. And when they like requested their parts, the parts would disappear. Next request, parts would disappear. Next request, the parts would disappear. And eventually we just stopped sending them parts because they were selling them. And so what they did by the end of it is they started doing something called the Super Tucano program, where we basically sold them modern versions of World War II style propeller planes. And we gave them bombs. We gave them GPS guided bombs attached to World War II style propeller planes. But this was an infinitely more manageable air force that Afghanistan could run. And so it was more realistic to that country. And so I know I've been ranting for a while, so I'll wrap it up. But basically, like, I feel like we should start there and grow capacity, not try to give Afghanistan's F-35s and then figure out they're not capable of running stealth jets.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Though I gotta say, the Ukrainians have done a pretty good job.
They've done a damn
working
good
some of
job.
the equipment. Have you seen that viral video of the it was on Task and Purpose, like this analysis of 2 Bradley fighting vehicles taking out like a top of the line Russian tank? It's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, but that's actually kind of my point, though, is that the Bradley, for those people who don't know, it's like an infantry fighting vehicle. It's like a half transport, half tank hybrid, and they just have like really good ammunition on a smaller cannon, and they were able to outperform Russia's main battle tank that they've been crowing about for years. And we just gave them 30 Abrams, and I'm excited to see how they perform. Russia has claimed that they've already killed a couple, but honestly, I want to see the reports from both sides.
So I gotta ask you, like, look, I am a feminist. I gotta get your opinion on this. How do you feel about women serving on the front line, and do you think women should be included in the draft if we were to have one?
Yes, they should be included in the draft. I think they should do everything except for infantry. So
Fully agree. Yep.
like literally infantry and infantry special forces. But if you wanna drive trucks, if you want to be a translator, if you want to be a field intel officer, if you want to do any of that shit, go for it. And the only reason why I'm kind of insistent on the infantry thing is just because I think that there is a camaraderie of arms there, a psychological thing that is kind of specific. And also, I'm just going to be real. I think that if you add in females or trans women, I just think there's going to be a lot of rapes and murders. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
And like there's already some rapes and murders, but I think it would get substantively worse.
I mean, I will take your service and just I will cede your expertise on that. I don't have as strong a feeling about that, but yeah, I felt for a long time if we're going to have a draft in this country, and I think it makes sense to have a system to prepare a larger army if we were to be attacked. Although obviously volunteer army is best. I kind of just don't like this idea that some people don't have to contribute to their country in the same way. And yeah, maybe it made sense back when we made this law, but I think there's so many ways you can serve your country today that, strength is not as big a factor for that. I think you can look at everyone serving in Israel, and I think it does add to a sense of national unity that I think is very good for that country. So I can tell you, just growing up and knowing I would never be able to serve the way that my father did, I really resented that. I think I would have been very good if I'd been allowed to serve. So I just think everyone should have the chance to fight for their country.
Yeah, not just that. And I'm sick of I'm a little misogynist. We all know this. I'm sick of women wanting it both ways, where it's like we're equal pay, equal this, equal that, equal this, equal that. And it's like, all right, fine. Then you just have to know that when you're 18, there's a 1 in a million chance that if we get into a serious hot war, the government's going to call you up and they're going to make you train and they're going to make you go do that shit. We haven't had a draft call up since like Vietnam or whatever, but I think it does do something psychologically to young men where they know that on some level they're societally and socially disposable. And I think it kind of gives them like a fucking victim complex. And I think that if you force women to do that, where it's like, yeah, you might not be an infantry person, but you could be motor T, you could be mortars, you could be tech, you could run drones, you could do this, you could do that. I think that it would I think that it would increase that sense of shared danger and shared interest. And also, women oftentimes aren't the most hawkish, but I resent any person who is hawkish without at least having served previously.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like if you're going to be hawkish, at least risk your ass when you're 18 to 22. That's it.
Yeah,
And then after that, you can talk about invading Taiwan and China and Afghanistan and Iran and all that kind of stuff. If you walk the walk, you can talk all the shit you want to talk. But yeah. So what else what even was this? This was like neocon Nikki.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
no, it was a great tangent. I was just thinking we were talking about neocon Nikki. So.
Do you think she's a neocon? I mean, she served as a diplomat, right?
People say that. I think it's just because she's a little bit more muscular and hawkish than other people, and people associate, at least I do, neoconservatism. If I remember correctly, the history was like a bunch of Democrats who came over to the Republican side, but they believe that like liberal and Republican values should be spread worldwide, and so as a result, they became a little bit more fiscally conservative than when they were Democrats, but they became pretty heavily like interventionist. That was the lore that I heard in a video or some shit like that. So am I wrong?
No, that matches what I think. I just it's my experience that most people that have served as diplomats, I don't know. I think that there is a very correct impulse to use, the diplomatic process and the State Department, go through that first. I don't know how you feel about Anthony Blinken. I think he's been an excellent Secretary of State. And I don't know. I think, I've gotten to know, what's his name? Richard Stengel, more than a little bit over the last few years. He served as Undersecretary under John Kerry when he was Secretary of State. And there's just there's a real commitment to service, which I really appreciate, and a real willingness to work with other countries there. I think people don't appreciate their State Department. Politics change, but the professionals that work at the State Department very much stay the same. They're used to, everybody going out the door and working with Republicans and Democrats. So there tends to be a real professionalism there that I admire.
That's one thing that I've noticed about institutionalists. A lot of people in chat really don't like it, but this is just a perspective that I have that I don't think is going away. When I see a Republican or a Democrat, but they tend to be like an institutionalist, like they've worked in the State Department or the DOJ or the FBI or whatever, and they've done that for 20 years, and then they do make like public concessions to the fact that they're trying to be as fair as possible within the system. I infinitely prefer a institutionalist who is trying to play a fair game with the other political side versus like a firebrand ideologue who has never been a part of the institution at all. The reason why I'm biased that way is because I feel like a lot of populist firebrands who are outside the system just think that you can walk in, smash it all, and recreate it in their own image. And the truth is that a lot of these institutions have like inertia and operations that are like, you could be talking about the Department of Energy, you could be talking about the FBI, you could be talking about the CIA. People's lives and deaths are dictated by these institutions. So to believe that you can just walk in, fuck it up, and then, change it in your own image is horrifically naive.
It's crazy. Yeah, 100%. I want to talk about the Democratic primary. Obviously,
Sure.
There was a huge group of people that voted uncommitted. Michigan does have a very long history of doing this. I was looking at some of the numbers. Last time around, it was 20,000. This time around, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a little over 100,000 that did this. And the code in the Democratic Party is if you're voting uncommitted, you're voting for quote unquote a ceasefire. So this is this is 5 times the number of people that did it last time around. I see this both ways, that there are a lot of people trying to say that this is very strong evidence that Joe Biden must, end relations with Israel and demand
fuck off.
Netanyahu end this war immediately. And I see a lot of Democrats, the kind that just want to. It's the same people that believe they could not believe Trump won because they were just assuming their moral superiority would carry the day. I see a lot of Democrats like pretending that this is no big deal. I think that this is significant, and I think we should take it seriously, but I think it's surmountable. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, sorry for interjecting with profanity. However, I do think that the ceasefire, people writing in ceasefire is probably overrepresented on social media. I think that there's a general there's a general desire, this is my vibe, this is purely vibes. There's a general desire on behalf of the American people to not see further bloodshed. As much as we're like, as much as we're vilified on the national stage as being like bloodthirsty for Muslims to be endlessly slaughtered, that's actually not most Americans. Most Americans do believe that most people are human beings deserving of life, dignity, respect, you know, economic prosperity, et cetera, et cetera. So, however, that being said, you are bumping into, I don't know, like an 80-year narrative about Israel's right to exist, and we're incredibly sympathetic to the Israeli people because we view their creation and their propagation as a sanctuary for people who were fucked over in the Holocaust. So when you have Muslims, you know, God bless them, talking endless shit about how they're just going to like slaughter the entire state of Israel, and any Jews who are left in the state of Israel are going to be servants of a new Palestinian state, you're instantly like off the fucking wall. Like nobody gives a shit about what you have to say. So those people arguing for like a one state solution, but not Israel, those people are fucking Looney Tunes. They're crazy.
You didn't like Hassan's comments on this? You
No, did he?
disagreed with
Yeah,
that?
did he literally? Oh my God. Sorry, I'm like getting triggered. I think I'm having heartburn. I hope I don't have a heart attack. But wasn't he saying that he wanted like a one state solution, but he wanted it to be Palestinian, and then he expected it to be like secular?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the hold on. I'm gonna hold that. I know you're friends with Cenk. I'm gonna keep that to myself.
You can say it. I mean,
that's one of the dumbest fucking geopolitical takes that I've heard in the past fucking decade, and I've heard a lot of dumb fucking takes.
You know, it's really crazy. And there's a
secular one state Palestine, secular, where the two most popular parties are fucking like Hamas. And I don't think the Muslim Brotherhood is there. I think they're more in Egypt. But still, like somebody akin to the Muslim Brotherhood. Like, get the fuck out of here. This dude's crazy.
You see these. My favorite thing to look at on TikTok is Queers for Palestine.
Yep.
Out there, have you seen the videos of like the LGBT people marching for Palestine run into actual people that are Muslims who are anti-LGBT, and they're like gross. Kind of get into they get into a confrontation and a near fight. That's really something. Yeah, I want to be clear. This is
I love that. So hold on. That's super important.
Yes,
that is so important. Yes. As somebody, let's just say I am way cooler with Muslims now than I was in 2016. 2016, I was like, fuck off. Don't come to our country. We don't need you. Most of you are economic immigrants. The refugees, we can evaluate their cases, but we're only going to be accepting the refugees that have legitimate cases. The rest of you can stay in the fucking Middle East and North Africa. That was my opinion. I am now more chill with Muslims. However, actually having Muslims in the United States of America vote against the LGBTQIA+++ flag in their community and banning it from state grounds, one of the funniest fucking things I've seen in the past 5 years. Muslims in the street meeting up with Queers for Palestine. It's rude. I understand it's rude, and I'm not trying to, make my LGBTQIA friends upset. However, seeing real Muslims be like, get the fuck out of here. Like, we don't want you as a part of our team. I hope that's a reckoning for some progressive people to realize that just because you import somebody into a liberal or progressive country doesn't instantaneously make them liberal or progressive. One of the delicious Schadenfreude for me. Sorry, continue.
Well, it just seems to me, like it is a standard practice in the LGBT circles to blast the religious right. We call them theocrats, this, that. They're obviously the devil. It seems to me if your objection is theocracy, right? It's not about someone being Muslim or having a different point of view. It's wanting to bring those views into the public sphere, right? So, particularly as I think this is increasingly going to affect European politics. I mean, it's just a fact that for a wide variety of reasons, you have a lot of refugees that are moving across Europe into a lot of different countries. Like partially is for economic opportunities to escape oppression. in some cases, but it is changing the demographics, and there are some more theocratic attitudes that are part of that. I think exactly like with the religious right, I think it's okay to have a conversation about that. If you believe in democracy, I think part of that is secularism and separation of church and state, in my view.
Yeah, I want the republic to survive, but if I need to convert real quick, it's not going to be too hard. So, like, the I should explain myself. So I love the United States of America. I think the Constitution is phenomenal. Right to conscience, freedom of speech, right to self-defense, limited government, regulations, balance of power, all that kind of stuff. I literally think that the founding fathers, while being slave owners and sometimes degenerates, were fantastic, and they created a phenomenal, the foundation for a phenomenal system. However, as a straight white man who is ostensibly spiritual, literally Islam is like one of the easiest religions on the fucking planet. It's literally believe in
If
God.
Sneeko can qualify, I'll be fine.
Exactly. It'll believe in God, the last day, do good works, and Muhammad is his messenger. That's like the easiest barrier to entry for religion ever. You don't even have to believe in the Trinity or the resurrection of Christ. You don't have to believe in any of that. You can be Muslim super fucking easy, and it's a monotheistic religion. So who can't take a little bit?
Is there?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been married for 15 years.
Right?
Just normal monogamous marriage.
Basically, a Muslim tradcon. You don't even need a niqab. You don't even need a niqab or a hijab. You could just throw on like a shawl or something. You're good to go. Like, yeah.
There we go. So before we move on, I have to address something that was in chat, because someone was asking if I shoot guns, and I do. Yeah, I want to tell a story. About the last time I tried to hang out with Connor 2 times ago when I was down in Florida. So my husband, Frank Wu, who's awesome, you should go follow him on Twitter. When we go down to Orlando, he loves to go to a place called Machine Gun America, which I'm amazed is legal. You can go there and just like at a firing range. It's awesome. Frank is freakishly good at this. When it comes to the zombie apocalypse, just hand Frank the minigun. He's good to go. And we tried to get Connor to go with us to go shoot. And he pussied out of it because he had to go take care of his wife and be there for the birth of his child, which I think is a mark of great shame. So,
no, it was, but I do have to take care of my family in order to get in order to get those cloud points. And by the way, Admiral Gibbs says Connor hates guns. Confirmed. Wrong. And we're going to show you something else. As a matter of fact, we should just do it right now. I should just show you guys the bolter, right? We should
Let's
just do that.
It. Oh my God,
because that's a relatively decent. So, all right. So I need to share this. I need to do a little bit of preamble. So, I have wanted to do a bolter forever. The closest I could get, bolters were 75 caliber in the Warhammer 40,000 lore. 12 gauge shotguns are 72 caliber. There's something called an Origin 12 shotgun that I wanted to get. And the truth is I couldn't afford it. It's $3,000. It's way too expensive. So what I did instead is I looked for a shotgun that kind of had like an AR-15 vibe without a stock. And I found the VRF 14 by Rock Island. It's only $600. So it's, it still sent me back a pretty penny, but it didn't break the bank, right? And so what I started doing was I 3D printed a frame around it to make it look like a bolter. The first one, I replaced the handguard with it, but it could handle buckshot and low velocity slugs, but it could not handle high velocity slugs. So I had to redo that. It really sucked. I've been doing this for the past 2 weeks feverishly, but I had to redesign it, put the handguard back on, and then redesign the furniture around the handguard. I took it to the range today and successfully fired slugs up to 1,400 feet per second, which is fast as fuck. You don't want to get hit by that. 1,600 feet per second was too much, but 1,400 was perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my internet. Let me make sure there's nothing crazy on there. There isn't. We're going to go to my bolter. And I'm going to go live. And then I'm going to make the live large for everybody at home. And then let me just make sure that OBS can see this, because I don't want to be talking shit while nobody is seeing anything. Oh, come on. There we go. All right, y'all can see, right? All right, so let's do this. Let's take a look at the bolter. And I'm going to run it like 2 or 3 times because it's only 18 seconds.
Yeah, the M4A1 pulse rifle.
It's so badass.
I know.
Yes!
All right, I'll just run it the once because I think you guys get the vibe.
No. I want to say it one more time.
Okay, one more time. Let's go back.
Oh my god, that is so cool.
It is.
Yeah, the M4A1
Okay,
pulse rifle.
so I have some notes on this as someone who 3D prints a lot. So, do you know how to plastic weld?
I don't.
Okay, so I think one of the biggest problems I have with this are the seams right here. So I think you either need to get some epoxy and use it in between those joints and then sand it down between that. Using progressively different, 400, 800, 2000 grit sandpaper and make that flushed. I think that's one of the biggest things that I see. Also, I can kind of make out your layer lines when I'm looking at this. So I wanted to ask, how big is your nozzle head on your printer?
Yeah, so when it comes, I would actually have to go into the settings. I want to say I'm like 0.05 above the Z or whatever, the Z axis once it's auto leveled. So I don't know what that necessarily means. However, what was happening before when I had that's literally the next step up, the Z. But what happened when I was one step down was the nozzle was bumping into the previous layer line and knocking it off, and then it was ruining the print. So I had to go up one in order to be able to print. I'm not saying we can't calibrate that, but and then this one, this is all for function. So the goal, bolters in general have like metallic magazines. They have metallic bottoms. This, I think I need to do black right here if everybody can see my mouse. The game plan would be the screws. I have most of the screws in, but I don't have all of them in. And these are plastic 3D printed screws. Honestly, I'm wondering if I need to actually do like a screw that actually has a thread.
Yeah, you probably should. Yeah.
Yeah. And then anyways, but the point is that this is a functional prototype color wise. And also your notes are taken with the gaps. Basically right now I have a rectangle with a square cut in it that is on the inside of these guys. And these are basically pegs without threads that are just going through the squares. And then my print bed is only 9 inches. So this is 9 inches and this is 9 inches. And then this one's like 3 and this one's like 6. But those are the limitations of my print bed. I couldn't do this as a monolithic upper. So if there's a way to...
If we drive down to Orlando next time, we just retired our Taz workhorse, which is, it'll print something that large.
Nice.
We moved over to the Prusa. It's just sitting in my attic. So I'll throw that in my car the next time we drive
literally,
down
I can
and donate that.
If you donate that, then we will be manufacturing Warhammer 40K and science fiction weapons out the ass.
Actually, I wonder if we can ship it to you. I would worry that it would be damaged, but we'll figure out.
All right. The world is getting better.
Taking out my attic.
Yeah. But let's watch it one more time and then let's go back, or we'll just talk about it a little bit. Beautiful. So what I know I need to do. Somebody was talking about some kind of 3D concept where you turn this into like a 45-degree angle. I forget what it is. What is Chaffner, something. Chamfer?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Chamfer or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so he was recommending chamfer so it's less brutal on the hands. This handguard needs to come back a little bit, so I might actually turn half of this into a continuation of the handguard, and then I'll cover up the gap, like you said, with epoxy and sanding. I'll obviously print, I'll do all this. I need to shrink the screw pegs at minimum. If I don't go back and get threaded screws and I just use the pegs, I need to make the pegs a little bit skinnier because they're so tight right now that they're literally stuck in here. I can't remove them. them. So I'm going to make them a little bit skinnier so they're actually removable. And then I do have some, just some aesthetic work on the chamber in the rear that I'm going to do. But honestly, I would say this is 1,600 feet per second slugs were too much. I did get a crack in the chamber. So I'm just going to say that this is 1,400 and under. I'm going to do all the improvements that I just talked about. And then I'm going to do a torture test with 1,400 feet per second slugs. So I'm literally going to fire 50 to 100 out of it and just see like at what point we're getting cracks in it. And then at that point, I want to go into production. So I will sell the STLs to other people. And then if people want me to make them a bolter, then I will do so. Yeah, so I'm just a little side tangent, but I'm ecstatic.
I love it. I don't mean to dish your prototype. It is gorgeous work and just completely cool seeing that thing work.
This has been it's been in my heart's desire since I think I first bumped into Warhammer 40K in 2003. But this was never technologically possible. And then I got a 3D printer maybe about 6 months or a year ago. When I realized that this was a technological possibility within the past year, I don't think that I thought about much else. I think most of my free brain time is spent creating 3D models in my mind on how to build chainsaw swords, how to build bolt pistols, how to build bolters, how to build, the Gears of War gun, how to build the Aliens gun, how to build this, how to build that. And I have no idea if people would buy it in such a way to actually turn it into a business. But I at least want to have the creative output so other people can enjoy my insanity.
See, this is why Frank loves you so much, because he has the exact same thing. Like he has a crazy idea and just has to be able to do it. I want to sell you on something. If you do get this done, I want to encourage you to cosplay a Warhammer Space Marine and get your wife to what do you call them?
Sisters of Battle.
The
Sororitas.
Sisters of Battle. Yeah, Sororitas. Yeah. I think that would be amazing. I think you have to do that.
That might be possible. So I'm gonna hit people with the lore anyways, whether they want it or not. So the Schola Progenium is the war orphan college for the Imperium of Man, and that's where the Tempestus Scions train. Those are the stormtroopers. And that's where the Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle, train. So while the Sisters of Battle have power armor, they're actually more equivalent because they're both mortal. They're not necessarily gene edited or gene edited to a high degree. So I have somebody working on a Tempestus Scion helmet right now. They're using the DevTac Ronin. Have you ever seen a DevTac Ronin?
No, let me look it up right now.
Okay, yeah, so if you Google DevTac Ronin, and I'll share it for the people at home, but it's a ballistic helmet.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so the DevTac Ronin is, let me find it.
Holy shit, that's expensive.
Well, that's because there's an airsoft version that's $200. And there's a ballistic version that literally stops bullets. Now, right. I'm not getting the ballistic version. I'm just getting the airsoft version. But I think that people will see what I'm going for. Hold on, let me move this back over here. Basically, I have somebody who is going to skeletonize, or not skeletonize, they're going to put over it Google the term Tempestus Scion. So Tempest US Scion. And then look at their helmets, and I'm basically going to have them skin a Tempestus Scion helmet over the top of the Ronin helmet. So yeah, we're gonna do like range time cosplay at some point. Let me share this with the chat. We've already talked to you about a shitload of politics, so y'all should be happy with a little bit of 40K nerd stuff. All right, so on your screen right now is the DevTac Ronin. So there's a ballistic version of this and an airsoft version, as I already mentioned. It already has the eyelets. It cracks apart. Some of these ballistic plates are removable, so you can make it more, I don't know, you can make it easier to manage with a 3D print. And then if you go to a Tempestus Scion, that's not the best art, but it's basically a steampunk helmet with these giant, horrifying ballistic goggles, and it's very almost like the Rocketeer. I don't know if I'm dating myself with that movie, but it kind of looks like steampunk Rocketeer evil soldier. Very cool. So yeah, that's a game
Oh my
plan.
goodness. You can 3D print these. They've got a 3D file out there for that. It looks like Jack Bauer at the end of season 7 when he's trying to assassinate President Logan. He puts on a
Does he? Does he have like a crazy assassin mask? Sick.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, so that's really the game plan. So while obviously Brianna and I are still going to be doing political content for you guys regularly, I don't even know if we're necessarily done right now. I was just bringing up that we are, but I'll still be working on 40K props and all that stuff in the background. So I'll check out chat in a second. But let's make sure we covered all our topics tonight before we do anything else.
I'm sorry, I have to ask you, just as long as we're talking Warhammer. I was looking this week, I was like, boy, I wonder how much Warhammer costs these days. Like, I was just looking at, Frank and I are huge into Legion. We love Star Wars Legion. We get everything that comes out of that. Holy crap, this is so overpriced, even compared to Star Wars Legion.
Yeah.
Like $100 for a starter kit where you barely have an army and $200 to get some terrain. That is just insane, dude. How do you, that is crazy.
It is, but the models are beautiful. The lore is beautiful. If you love painting, then it's super into it. Also, there is plenty of lore inconsistency in Warhammer, but Star Wars, I'm not going to lie, drives me up the fucking wall. Because there's some things that are so good, and there's other things that are so trash, and they're right next to each other. So like Mandalorian Season 1, phenomenal. Why the fuck did Grogu come back in Season 2? Most retarded narrative decision in the entire cinematic history. The Mandalorians, why do they have terrible tactics? Why do Imperial blaster bolts, why are they only attracted to Mandalorian armor? How come they're not attracted to the weak points in Mandalorian armor? What is it? Andor, phenomenal. Rogue One, phenomenal. Disney Star Wars movies, absolute dog shit. So yeah, so I get really frustrated with Star Wars. There's a certain amount of like weird wrestling, emotional, emo bullshit that comes with Warhammer 40K, but whenever you feel like it's getting too into your feels, somebody gets flayed alive and it brings you back to grimdark.
So I have to sell you on this just to get you to play Star Wars Legion with me. I sent you a link. They've just shipped the latest Star Wars unit, which is the Ewoks. You can have an entire army of Ewoks from Return of the Jedi taking on.
Yeah, but I would want to murder them, right? Like I would want to be the I would want to play as an Imperial, and I would want to kill everyone because like even other Imperials, like I would want to play post Palpatine Imperial and be like, we need to bring order to the galaxy. All these you know what oh man, this is a horrible joke. Do you know what I saw somebody call Jedis on Twitter because they because they kidnap children?
No. Oh no. Oh my goodness.
They call them Jedophiles.
You're going to
unhear that shit. Unhear that shit. Your favorite space monks in the galaxy wielding the Force for order and light. Bunch of fucking Jedophiles.
Oh no. All right, what other politics do we have this week to go over?
All right. Back to the politics real quick. And we can just touch base. I don't think you and I we might have contention. We'll see. So or not contention, but just something to say. Alabama legislated before they looked. Although I guess it's not technically legislation, if I remember correctly, it was actually the Supreme Court stated that inseminated eggs are people. And so it's been like a huge issue when it comes to the legality of like fetuses and when it comes to IVF in particular, because human beings have legal protections that are important. And IVF places have either shut down or suspended operations because you can't stab a human being without their consent with a needle and then collect their cells and then put them someplace else. So yeah, so that's you got anything for that? You got anything for Republicans being stupid?
We tried this
principled over stupid
in my home state of Mississippi. They tried to pass a personhood amendment on this, and one of the reasons Mississippi voted against this is when you really start thinking through it, you're criminalizing women to have miscarriages, and you're basically making it very difficult for people that want to start families. I don't think there's anything conservative or family focused about someone with infertility issues having the government come in and say, I'm sorry, we just have some questions about this procedure. You're not going to be able to have a family now. I think that, the American people at their core, we like freedom. And I think that I think it's a losing argument from both sides. Like the Republicans aren't going to like it because it's the government constricting your personal rights and decisions. And I think Democrats aren't going to like it because it is part of this reproductive battle against reproductive health care.
Yeah, so I think there's my main criticism, I guess, is we need to understand the implications of the legislation before we fucking do some wild shit like this. And on top of that, it's not funny. Like, so there's a certain element of Republicans who, and I'm among them, but like shit posting through legislation was funny in 2016. Right? Like the Muslim ban was funny for the first 2 minutes of it. And then after that, when you found out like what actually happened, it was actually pretty fucked up. And there's also like a shitload of examples of that. I do want stronger border. I do want to heavily vet people who come to the country. I do want more moral weight put on developing fetuses. But at the same time, like if you fuck up this badly, where you have families who are trying to be created who lean conservative, and then they say, you fucked me over, you destroyed my capacity to have my family, or you at minimum delayed it in the most inconvenient way possible, then you're just creating bad blood for all the people who would otherwise support you. And I think it's wholly counterproductive, and it's the kind of like principle over policy bullshit that I just keep seeing as Republicans stepping on rakes over and over and over again.
Do you think, like, from your assessment, how do you think most Republicans feel about this? Do you think they see it as abortion, or do you think they see it as kind of an attack on their personal freedom?
I don't think I know a single normie conservative who gives a flying fuck about IVF. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of them are giga supportive because they view it as like people who are not capable of having families taking part in one of the most like conservative traditions possible. Having a family, raising a family, teaching the next generation, all that kind of stuff. These are all core conservative values. So if you have somebody who's having medical difficulty doing that and they're going through extreme financial and medical burden in order to partake in that part of culture, that's almost valorized to a certain degree. So I don't think I'm sure there's some Christian fundamentalists who really like hardcore, like, nope, as soon as it's fertilized, it's a human being. You can't fuck with it anymore. There might be some of those, but honestly, I have to say like 80%, 90% feel the way that I do, where why are we fucking with people who are trying to have families? That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there it is. Anything else in the hopper to go over?
Yep. Very last one was the constitutional. So Virginia, I believe, is considering an abortion amendment similar to Ohio. They're trying to enshrine the right to reproductive health care as a constitutional right. As a protest, I believe the state has attempted to pass legislation. I think they're voting on it on the 9th. Don't hold me to that. I have very cursory knowledge, but basically they're voting on the legislative impact because the constitutional amendment is so broad. They're wondering what the implications are. Now, for me, from the right-wing side or whatever, I share some of these concerns. If you give somebody like a full right to, we should just read it, to be honest. If you have any comments, go ahead. I'm going to actually pull up the language.
I just want to be honest, I've not read about this today, so it's 100% on you.
Sure. So let me pull it up. That way I'm not talking out of my ass, which I do love to do, but not this time. Come on, more recent. Where is the group chat where somebody linked this to me? I'm sorry, it's taking me a second. All right, here we go. I got it. Let me open it. Okay. So, directing the Speaker of the House of Delegates to order a study of the legal effects and consequences of constitutional amendment enshrining a right to reproductive freedom. Directs the Speaker of the House and delegates to order a study of the legal effects and consequences, repeating itself, including whether the phrase, "this right to make and effectuate one's own decisions about all matters related to one's pregnancy shall not be denied, burdened, or infringed upon." And then the concerns are, would constitutionally protect abortion throughout all of pregnancy, create a constitutional right for the parents of a dead child to sell such child's body parts, and legally permit partial birth infanticide, born alive murder, child pornography, sexual assault, and any other crime so long as the umbilical cord and placenta are still attached to both the mother and the child. Fuck,
Jeez.
they had me in the first half and they lost me in the second.
Jeez.
Hold on. Oh, let's read the amendment again.
Oh my God.
This right to make and effectuate one's own decisions about all matters related to one's pregnancy shall not be denied, burdened, or infringed upon. Wow, they literally lost me. Don't worry, chat, we're coming back. They had me in the first half, not gonna lie. Where for me, if you're gonna say that your right to reproductive health care cannot be infringed upon or anything through constitutional amendment. Constitutional amendments are some of the strongest legalistic language that you can possibly have in a republic. So, you know, guns rights people, they argue about this all the time. They're basically taking the Second Amendment language and they're applying it to abortion. And so my concern would be late-term abortion of viable fetuses. We all know that makes up a small percentage of the total thing, but it's a moral concern of mine. Just because you murder one person and statistically rare doesn't mean that murder shouldn't be prohibited. Whereas that other shit, like shooting child porn with your fetus attached to you because you have an unlimited right, I don't think that would be an accurate legalistic interpretation.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, just the plain language that you're reading. It's obviously, I don't know if it's written by people that want this to fail to get passed, or if it's just you've got extremists that are kind of, not extremists, that's a poor way to say it, but rather people that want to take the like maximalist position on all of this. But I just, that seems like that's going to get some talk, and it seems like it's going to feed into this, the Republican desire to basically do a nationwide abortion ban for 2024.
You were involved in electoral politics for a bit, and I have the privilege so far in punditry to be able to just say what I'm thinking. How much do you subscribe, or do you think that people in politics subscribe to the using the desired effect of language to affect the way that you're wording things? So for me, I view the last half sentence as like wholly dishonest. I don't think that I think that most Republicans do not think that this constitutional amendment is going to be used to defend people shooting child pornography with a fetus. I don't think that's real. However, I think that a politically minded person might use that provocative language in order to draw attention to the bill so they can still try to get people either behind them or against them in such a way to actually, at minimum, stoke the conversation, if not try to get the legislation passed. So how do you view that rhetorical relationship of just saying what you think and trying to get people to say your way as honestly as possible versus having tactically designed language?
I think that we have, I think that there are plenty of bills out there, exactly like you said. Your assessment is correct. It's meant to shock. It's meant to get news. It's meant to get attention. It's meant to, make it a wedge issue. There's certainly a lot of that. I think that if you're really interested in protecting women's reproductive rights, I think there's a floor of support that makes a lot more sense for us to be aiming for, right? Like, I don't share your same concern about like viable, fetuses in the third trimester. is not as big a concern for me. But the fact that it matters to you and I can get you to support 90% of what I care about until then, that makes sense to me, right? And I think it's this all or nothing thinking that's really gotten our democracy into a very difficult place. So what I want to see with reproductive health care is less posturing and more serious legislation.
Yeah, if I could actually just share that concern, because I think it's used as a cudgel on the right against the left that we can't get the simple concession. And so the simple concession, that this is my conceptualization, I'm speaking only for myself. I think that when you have sex, you're taking a certain amount of risk, especially if you're not using protection. You should know that. We should have good sex ed, et cetera, et cetera. But once you get pregnant, the way time moves is so fluid that I've had years pass by in what feels like weeks, and I've had seconds in my life feel like millennia. So to put a 20-week window on abortion and just say it's awesome up until this point doesn't make sense to me at all. I still think it's a moral wrong, even if it's like a socially necessary thing for women to have the right to, their bodily autonomy, et cetera, et cetera. And so then that comes down to me of like personhood for the fetus, or at least the minimization of harm to the potential fetus, where I think that I'm a product of consciousness being rooted in my brain, and also of the central nervous system controlling my body. And the central nervous system is what is capable of giving me a sense of pain. And that starts developing at the 18-week mark. So for me, if you eliminate a fetus before 18 weeks, still have a moral objection. However, I don't think you're doing as much harm as if you have an abortion after 18 weeks. Now, there's exceptions that should obviously be carved out. If the fetus has like horrible developmental issues that's going to result in painful life or painful death, if there's severe developmental issues that are just it's going to make it a medical burden, not just for the parent but a medical burden for the child themselves to live a short and painful life, I don't think that bringing that life into the world is necessary or even morally good. Then also, like, rape, I don't agree with an abortion, in a late-term abortion, in the concept of rape, but I would allow it for the sake of compromise. And then I think people also talk about incest. I would still think, the fetus or whatever, if it's past 18 weeks, it didn't do anything to you, but for the sake of compromise, I would let that go. So for me, I've narrowed down abortion to less than 2% of performed abortions, but within that 2%, I want to know that there are no developmentally viable fetuses that are being aborted between 20 weeks and delivery that are healthy and would otherwise have a normal pregnancy. Because to me, it's fucking infanticide.
I hear that concern. And, this is what I would say to this. Like, I think we'll save our abortion debate for another day. But this is what I would say. The pushback on women's reproductive health care has been a project on the right for 30 years. The Republicans didn't do this right away. They did it by piecemeal. And I think the opposite is true as well. If Democrats want to, like, there are very, very real health concerns. I'm sure you agree with me on, Connor, like ectopic pregnancies, right?
Yep.
I'm sure you read about these women that go in, their lives are in danger. They need to get an abortion because they're going to die. They're not able to get it in time because the state has outlawed it. They lose half their blood. I mean, it's truly horrible, right? If we are interested in a policy level of taking back this right, I think where it starts is you and I and the reasonable Republicans sitting down and go, what is the common ground that we agree on? Let's enshrine that into law. And maybe the American people look at that and they go, you know what? I'm good. And maybe this feminist rage goes away and we go, okay, this is as far as we want to go. Maybe the conversation keeps going. I think like rather than falling into all or nothing thinking, we need to be prepared to compromise a bit with people like you. That's how I feel.
Well, yeah. So I guess the only thing that I'm going to push you on, though, is what do you view? Let's say 22 weeks is viability, because at this point 22 weeks is viability. How how do you view an abortion of like a viable fetus after 22 weeks? Because for me, again, it's akin to murder. So do you not conceptualize it because you don't want to conceptualize it? Do you not conceptualize it because it's statistically rare? What's the, you know, because for me, like, I'm not trying to get you to, like, you know, throw a brick at your own audience or whatever. But for me, that is an important distinction, like very important.
I guess I would be honest and I would say I've always subscribed to life begins at birth. You know, and I think those cases where that happens, you know, the woman has bought a crib. It's a very, very painful decision. And kind of how I imagine you feel about guns. That's kind of how I feel about women's bodies, right? And I kind of resent anyone coming in and kind of telling women what, you know, we can do. So, you know, I think it's a much longer debate.
Okay. Well, then we'll wait till something truly pops off, and then we'll have that debate. So fantastic.
100%. 100%.
That is all
I
the
also
topics.
I want to tell you about something I'm doing tomorrow that I think
Sure.
you will find very interesting before we jump off.
I was about to
So,
say, am I going to be there, or are you going to be someplace else?
no. This is I hope this is not a personal overshare, but something I have dealt with for a really long time is a true clinical case of trauma, right? Yeah, earlier in the show, I talked about rehab and my trip through rehab 20 years ago. You know, that was a response to some things that happened in my childhood. And, yeah, I got therapy for it a while back. It went great. But, you know, like kind of a decade ago, I hit the point where it just wasn't doing anything. And I want to really thank veterans because they forced Massachusetts to adopt this policy. Something that Massachusetts has now legalized is you can go to a clinic here and you can pay for basically ketamine, which the clinical trials for this are amazing. They're phenomenal. I urge people to look at this. It's almost a miracle cure. The initial studies are so good, though we don't have a lot of long-term data yet. So what happens is you basically, they infuse you, they dope you up on ketamine. It increases like neurogenesis, it increases your neuroplasticity, and you kind of walk through those traumatic memories. It helps you recontextualize them. So I'm doing this tomorrow. I'm a little bit scared about this, but I think it's going to be really interesting. Like a life without flashbacks constantly. This is something I would really like to experience. So fingers crossed on that. I'll report with you how it's going to go.
No, I'll say a little prayer for you. I heard of ecstasy, whatever it's called again. I forget the chemical name. I've heard of similar I've heard of trials with ecstasy instead of ketamine. But it's interesting that they're doing the ketamine as well. But the point being in general that some wounds heal, some don't, and you know some leave huge scars. And you know, you kind of they'll come back to bite you in the butt every now and then. So from a law enforcement perspective, more so than the military, I got some ghosts, right? And I've been very thankful, very happy, very everything, and you've been a part of this as well. I wanted to live a very interesting life. I wanted to do law enforcement. I wanted to do the military. I wanted to get my 4-year degree. I wanted to, you know, have fun as a young person, et cetera, et cetera. But I have scars from those experiences. And it's really only been in this adulthood, in this like kind of middle age, that I've been able to take inventory and grow and kind of poke at the scar tissue and try to get it to heal a little bit better. And it's a process. So all I'm really saying is, not to you, but more to the audience, is if you hear something similar that I say that you went through, or something that Brianna said that you went through, my very strong encouragement is take your own time, but explore it, because it does get better. It fucking does. Like, shit can be horrible and you can have ghosts for decades and still you can do really cool things in your life. So yeah,
I think in some ways it makes you stronger. And I think that's good, but I think the negative of it is that trauma can sometimes come out on your family, you know, or the people you care about the most. So I don't know. It's just, it seems like something that, you know, it's legal. I've got the money to do it. certainly very expensive, which would be my biggest criticism of it. This is going to cost me $3,000 for 6 treatments, which is crazy. But you know what? It's like I said, therapy isn't doing anything, and I think it's worth a go. So I'll report back next week on it.
Beautiful. I love it. Then I think we hit all the topics. We did all the cool things. We showed the folks at home at Bolter. I'll hang out with chat for another minute and answer their questions and concerns. Do you have any final shout outs, any projects or anything else that you want to tell the audience about before you go?
I'm good to go. I can't wait to tell you about my new job on stream. Oh my goodness.
Ooh,
so
all right. Nice.
There we go.
All right. Very cool.
All right. I'm going to jump off, y'all. Thanks for having me. Talk to you next week.
All right. Have a great one. Talk soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are kind of out for the night, but I do want to thank the 56 people who are hanging out on YouTube. I think we peaked out around 60. I want to thank the roughly 8 to 10 people on Twitch for hanging out with us. I think we peaked out around 15, 20. So we were 70 cross-platform, and we're going to be trying to do this weekly. Part of streaming is consistency. So we're going to try to show up weekly in order to give you guys consistent content. I think that Brianna and I have decent banter. We're both long-winded. We're both verbose. But if you're into us being verbose and long-winded, and if you like our little insights and tangents and tirades and all that kind of shit, then I hope you come along for the ride. So I'm just going to check the chat. If you guys want to say @counterpoints in chat, and I will answer your question. So type out @counterpoints40k. Then ask your question. I will answer it. I'm going to scroll to the top, scroll to the bottom. When I catch up to you, we're done for the night. So, same, and you're an Iraq vet. Michael Hayes, who did dip out in order to go watch Tim Pool. We haven't broken him from Tim Pool yet, but we will. He's saying that he's a former veteran and that also one of his best friends is Muslim, and he used to have a kind of default hostility to Muslims as well. And it's like, yeah, like plenty of Muslims are fucking chill as shit. I don't want to create a Islamic theocracy inside the United States of America, but I'm way more chill with Muslims now than I was 5 years ago. So that's a silver lining to a few jihadist terrorist attacks, is Connor is more chill with Muslims. Connor hates guns confirmed. Wrong. Love my bolter. I mean, all props to Connor, but Destiny is probably a better shot, lol. Yeah, so with this was actually interesting because I got criticized by some gentlemen who I retweet on occasion. I think it's called Intuitive Defense. They're a firearms channel who do a cool little game. And basically they do like Pig, but with guns. And so it helps you practice fundamentals, etc. So check out Intuitive Defense and, Google them, YouTube them, whatever, watch their shit if you want to check out some cool skills. There's a difference between like I would say like finesse marksmanship and I would say combat marksmanship. And the truth is that every single combat scenario that I've ever seen has been effectively a mag dump. And so I have no problems if I'm taking like a 200-yard shot, if I'm taking a 100-yard shot, if I'm taking a 300 or a 500-yard shot. I have no problems like breathing, focusing on fundamentals, good structure, good bones, all that kind of stuff. I have no problems focusing on that shit. But if we're at like a 25-yard range, I just want to see all my shit in the, I want to see all my shit in the center. That's it. So if you're keyholing at 15 yards or 25 yards or whatever with a pistol, good for you. It's not a skill that I give a fuck about to cultivate. So, it takes discipline and mental fortitude to focus on pistol marksmanship that aggressively to be able to keyhole at 15 or 25 yards. So yeah, in some ways, Destiny might be a better marksman than me in that regard, but I would push it out to further distances and different platforms, and I think I would have insights to offer. Let's put it that way. How would a storm bolter work? I don't think I can make a fucking storm bolter. Yeah, tape two together. Man, we would need to get into CNC milling. That's what we would need to do. Straight up. We would need to get so the next thing is a PLR 16. It's from Caltech. It's $600 as well. It's relatively cheap for a firearm, but you would literally need to reverse the bolt so the shell ejection goes to the left. You would need to print a casing that goes across both. And it's 5.56 instead of 12 gauge, so that would be fine. But if you wanted to keep 12 gauge and have a fucking full-on VRF 14 storm bolter, you would have to do it in steel or aluminum. You couldn't do that in plastic. Absolutely not. That's way too much fucking recoil, and that's super unwieldy. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Kicks like a mule. Yeah, well, that was the bolt gun was 1,400 feet per second slugs. So buckshot runs like a champ. 1,200 feet per second slugs runs like a champ. 1,400 feet per second, it gets a little spicy. 1,600 feet per second, it can't handle it. So yeah. Bless it with incense, and the will of the Omnissiah will be with you. True. Which just got to show the Astartes are strong as shit because those things don't move when they fire them. Yeah, Jonah boy, true. Yeah, the fact that like Astartes say that when you fire their bolters, it's gonna like break your shoulder and shit. It's propaganda. It's bullshit. I think that a real Astartes bolter would probably be like a 20 millimeter round, so it actually would be pretty powerful. And then firing that like one-handed or two-handed in a hip fire thing, I think absolutely would rock your shit. But I don't think it would kill you. It might kill some pussies, but it wouldn't kill like a normal human being of average physical strength or slightly above physical strength. My Warhammer 40K first time was my first CQ, shift 24 hours, Red Space Marine 700 page plus book. Yeah. Warhammer 40K lore is fantastic. Yeah, you need to hit the gym so you can one-hand it. Because if you can't one-hand it, why own a bolter? Admiral Gibbs, good point. But I am making a bolt pistol, so we'll do that. This has gotten porn? True. Just made my first mini Black Templar. Ghost TV, or Ghosty says that. Awesome. Congratulations, bud. Welcome to the fold. Please design an Astartes, Terminator, Assault Cannon, and Rocketeer is awesome. I would have to be a millionaire in order to afford that shit, because the truth is that an assault cannon is based off of a Gatling gun. Gatling guns are considered machine guns. Machine guns are class 3 items that you have to have a class 3 license for. And in order to do that, not only would I probably need to be an FFL, meaning that I'm a licensed firearm dealer capable of firing fire or selling firearms to other people, but then I would also need to get class 3 licensing in order to get fully automatics. So I'm not saying no. But we would need to be like, we don't need to just be paying bills. We need to be like a millionaire in order to be able to do that. Is Andor actually good? Yeah. It's like it's by the guys who did Rogue One. It's one of the few adult themed, aggressive, fun, weird, fucked up Star Wars programs out there. Sorry, we need to keep stacking the courts until the NFA is dismantled. Yellow Knight 9 wants gun anarchy. Understood it. Killing a healthy baby isn't health, it's evil. What the fuck? Yeah, Storm of the Century. I agree with you completely. This is how Republicans get stomped in the midterms. Yeah, if you fucking... If you have poor legislation and you fuck over normies, it's not going to help. Absolutely. Christian Valera says, they played the long game equals the removal of Roe versus Wade. Gotta admire the dedication, at least. Yeah, it actually is impressive in a way. And then people were saying no video. If I share screen with you, if I use Discord in order to share a screen with you, all of it will pop up. However, if I click off onto a screen in order to research something or Google something, you guys are going to go gray or black. So you kind of need to get used to that. We'll work on it. We'll use like StreamYard or some shit in the future and get some fancy backgrounds and all that bullshit, but it is what it is. Less than 10% of Dems support abortion after the second trimester. This is fear-mongering. Christian Valeris, I never thought you were a fucking lib or a progressive or whatever, but you've been posting like a lib or a progressive all night. I have, yeah, just because it's statistically rare doesn't mean that it should be legally allowed. This is like the same point with murder. I already said this, I said this in chat anyways earlier in the night. Just because something doesn't affect you, or just because it's statistically rare, doesn't mean that it should be prohibited. Murder is statistically rare. I think it's like 5 per 100,000. And if you eliminated black people from the calculation, it would drop down to like 4.1. Just because it's 4.1 per 100,000, do you say, well, 999,996 of you aren't going to be murdered, therefore we're going to legally permit murder? No, of course not. You still ban murder and you prosecute offenders. So yeah. Origin of Logo says, Connor, you and I might have to fight one of these days. Well, considering how often you DM me, probably. I think telling others how to live is morally wrong if they aren't in your personal space. That is libertarian cringe bullshit. Plus, why is this guy so concerned with female problems? Wow, yeah, that's... Apply that with any level of thought, and you'll figure out your own fucking answer. Why are we concerned about the war in Ukraine? It's thousands of miles away. This doesn't affect me. Oh shit, there's a fucking draft now. Oh shit, my taxes went up because we're paying for it. Oh shit, there's a global war in Europe. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, just like read a history book. Read any history book in the history of fucking ever. And you'll understand how hyper individualism is retarded, borderline cringe. Oh. Christian Blair says that Vlad the Kebabber, you ain't escaping global homo. It will encompass the entire planet. True. You will have to watch the Buzz Lightyear lesbian peck on the cheek scene. It's going to happen. Even in Hungarian, they're going to be on Hungarian Netflix. I did Kate back in the Ravers days. So it's interesting to me. I'm not trying to, shoot Brianna in the foot. I heard that the going through trauma was ecstasy. I heard it was MDMA, not ketamine. But it's interesting to me because I believe ketamine is like a tranquilizer. So I could see how in low doses, if you totally relaxed and then walked through your trauma, maybe you would be able to process your trauma and kind of like get past the flashback. So I'm not sure if it's ketamine or if it's MDMA, but I think either way, it's got potential. And shit, you want to offer me some free fucking ketamine or MDMA and offer me like a chill setting where we just like chill in like a dark, warm place where we just talk about trauma and listen to chill music? I'm down for that. That sounds fantastic. I might be retarded, but I am a 30-year-old adult, so this is who you are sharing society with, people like me, amongst others. Well, Ryan, I think that not 90%, I think 40% of America is retarded, so yeah, you're not wrong. Multiculturalist James says, best to you in your journey, Brianna. Awesome. I'll need a robust condom. True. At Counterpoints 40K, they're going to be a standard time for more episodes. Yes. So Wednesday and Thursday, 6 p.m. So 6 p.m. works for Brianna. 6 p.m. kind of works for me. Not the best time for me, but it still works. And then also Wednesday, Thursday, because that's convenient for both of us. What's with the glue, buddy? I don't know which glue, but looking at the screen right here, I mean, I use glue for models. I use, I use filament for 3D printing. I use super glue for models. If I was playing with this, it's because I was using it for models and 3D printing. So yeah. No, Wednesday, Thursday is going to be Counterfire for sure. At Counterpoints, no question, just saying hi. Well, hello, Radham. Thank you, Radham. Thank you for inviting me to the debate, even though I am a part of Chudhammer. Thank you for introducing me to Arch. He did have me on once, and that was fun for me. How to make a las gun, Nuke says. Yeah, so tracers. My game plan would be to take a Mini 14, turn it into a Death Corps of Krieg Lucius pattern las rifle, and then cover it in the furniture the same way that I would. Try to hide the bolt ejection as much as possible, and then use tracers. That would be my thing. Any advice for starting a Warhammer army? Yeah, do Tabletop Simulator, pick your favorite faction, and then pick the coolest models possible until you have like 1,000 points, and then just start painting. And watch Duncan Rhodes for painting. What is your favorite shotgun? Well, I mean, if you're actually just talking about like conceptually, what would I trust my life with? I would probably do a Remington 870 for pump. I would probably do a Benelli 1014 for semi-auto, and then I would do a bolter for fun. You need an arm brace for a storm bolter, I'd imagine. Yeah, probably. Well, this isn't my kind of content. Bye. All right, well. Fart. Bolters in the lore are pretty inconsistent. Do whatever you like. You make it look right. True. At Counterpoints 40K, just need to dismantle the NFA. I don't agree, but fun enough. Planning on watching Dune Part 2? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to be going with my father-in-law. At Counterpoints 40K, plan on watching... Yeah, you said that. Or somebody else said that. 2 people asked me about Dune 2. You watched Shogun yet? No, but I've seen the trailer. It looks really good. Not my vibe. I'm not like a weeb. I don't like Japanese shit, but it looks very good. Looks like Japanese Game of Thrones. You just need to do a pop out and magazine the screen. Counterpoints 40K. Yeah, but I'm not doing screen capture. I'm doing window capture. We can talk about that later. At Counterpoints 40K, this is from Christian Valeris. The point is most left-wingers aren't supporting abortion after second trimester and no policy is pushing for that. Okay, then banning it shouldn't be a problem, right? If it's so statistically rare and 90% of Democrats don't believe in keeping it legally necessary, then that, as a compromise, should be an easy thing to concede. Sounds good. Dude, here's the thing. There's things that I care about, but I'm not going to die on every single fucking hill, and I would actually like good policy to get passed. So I'm not going to be like, no, we can't pass common sense abortion legislation because it'll give a W to the Democrats. I don't give a fuck. I care about the Republic. The parties are a vehicle for getting good policy. They're not supposed to be the end-all be-all of political alliances. 10-month abortion will happen. Just remember to stay nonviolent while I sip my tea in Hungary. If there's post-birth abortions, Vlad, then we can start doing some, not safe for TOS things. This is Christian Valeris, this is far left wish that is never going anywhere, especially with Republicans who are pushing for a complete Fed ban. Okay. I don't know if we disagree or if we're just approaching it from different directions. K has been effective for resistant treatment depression, but I'm not sure about the specific mechanism. Yeah, me as well. Galacto homo tomorrow. True, Jonah boy. We have a new saying. Global homo today, galacto homo tomorrow. True. Managed democracy for the stars. Absolutely. At Counterpoints 40K from Arakota, I'm more concerned about the rise of Islam in the West. I understand why, but Islamic morals are much more fucking worse than most Dawa Takiyans give it credit for. Sure. I mean, I agree with you. I want them to secularize and have a chill adaptation of Islam, not for so many Muslims to come into the United States at one time that then we have hardcore Islamic theocracy, parallel societies within the West. That sounds awful. But Ibogaine is for heavy duty trauma, and I've read is a last resort when others have failed. Interesting. No, use an actual laser? No, Yellow Knight. You know why? Because actual lasers aren't laser beams like they are in sci-fi. Lasers in real life are fucking beams that heat up the surface of something until eventually it catches fire. It's not very cool. Like literally, even like the lasers on fucking not star destroyers. The lasers on destroyers are like focused beams that take like 40 seconds to break apart a tiny drone. You're basically asking me to create a flashlight. I don't give a fuck about making a flashlight. That sounds lame as fuck. I want to use something that actually destroys something. I'm here for weapons. I'm here for a good time, not a fucking light beam time. Yeah. Reading the deleted messages, lol. Fun. All right. Some people are still advocating for Shogun. Actually, nah, Belarus sounds better. They don't allow any form of legal same-sex unions. Belarus it is. Lasers scare you more than bullets? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. Arakota, there are coil guns now that use magnets in order to shoot tiny metal projectiles. They're just not as powerful or as accurate as guns. So yeah. Cool. All right, Bibliolife. Awesome. I'm happy your dad is working for the military industrial complex. Tell him to become a patron on patreon.com/counterpoints. But anyways, parasocial love to you and yours. I saw a lot of regulars in the chat. Christian Valeris, Bibliolife, Yellow Knight. You were talking a little bit of shit last time, but I had some fun with you. Arakota, Radhom. I think I saw Cypher earlier tonight. I saw Vlad. You're my favorite. Distant Right Schizo. Nuke. Ryan dipped out. He might not be coming back, but, is what it is. Multiculturalist James. So parasocial love to you and yours. If you do have money, donate it. If you don't have money, don't donate it. We're having fun. We're doing cool content. I think it's going to be a fantastic year, and 2025 is going to be even better. So, parasocial love to you and yours. Thank you for the last minute donation. Have a fantastic night. Bye for now.